After kneeling and licking, Bai Yueguang regretted it. After licking his boots all their way, Tianwen was poisoned, and the 10 billion group was destroyed overnight. When the goddess wore a wedding dress, holding flowers, and went to ask Bai Yueguang for love, Tianwen chose to break up decisively. Chapter 1, Asking for 3 billion right away. In the VIP hospital room, Tianwen lay on the hospital bed. His pale face contrasted sharply with the glamorous summer figure of Xia Shuyun, who stood by the bedside. Finally, the day has come, Xia Shuyun said with a cold smile, her voice melodic. I had the finance department calculate your debt, it's around 600 million. But I think what you should be more concerned about is the medical bills. After finishing her words, she turned to leave. Wait. Tianwen, filled with resentment, his eyes blazing with anger, asked, why are you doing this? Because this is the retribution you deserve. Xia Shuyun said sharply. For the past 7 years, every minute and second, I've been enduring torment. You used money to hijack my fate, drained my youth, and now I'll make sure you have nothing left. 3 days from now, I will marry my brother Zimo. The wedding will be live streamed across the internet. If you're still not kicked out of the hospital by then, you can turn on the TV and watch our wedding. Tianwen clenched his fists, trembling with rage, his pale face turning bright red. Their brother Zimo, Xia Shuyun mentioned, was the person she had secretly admired since high school, Xiao Zimo. Xiao Zimo, with his handsome looks, attracted the attention of many girls and was considered a campus heartthrob. Throughout the 3 years of high school, Xia Shuyun had silently watched Xiao Zimo. Just as she gathered the courage to confess, Xiao Zimo went to South Korea to train as an idol. Xia Shuyun wanted to follow him, but at that moment, her family business encountered a crisis and urgently needed a large sum of money. So, Xia Shuyun, together with her father, went to the G Group for help. It was because of this plea that Tianwen met Xia Shuyun and fell for her at first sight. At Tianwen's request, the G Group invested 200 million into the Xia Group to help them survive a bankruptcy crisis. Afterward, under her family's request, Xia Shuyun started a relationship with Tianwen. However, it was not a love affair, it was just Tianwen's one-sided wishful thinking. They were officially a couple, but in private, there wasn't much intimacy between them. Tianwen thought his sincerity would move Xia Shuyun. But reality proved him very wrong. After graduating from university, Xiao Zimo returned to China to develop his career. Though he had a good background, unfortunately, he ran into the for returnees trend. In the end, he was completely overshadowed, unable to stir up much attention. At that time, Xia Shuyun, who was about to marry Tianwen, made a condition. She wanted Tianwen to set up an entertainment company to manage her career. Tianwen immediately agreed without hesitation. Thus, Xia Shuyun signed Xiao Zimo, who had returned to China. With the support of the G Group and Xia Shuyun's unrelenting spending of money and resources, Xiao Zimo finally became a top-tier celebrity. Later, Xia Shuyun and Xiao Zimo secretly conspired to push Tianwen and the G Group into ruin. Xia Shuyun first entered the management of the G Group, secretly gathering business secrets, which she later sold to the G Group's competitors, delivering a fatal blow to both Tianwen and the company. Building a mansion takes a long time, but bringing it down takes just an instant. Now, Tianwen was not only burdened with debt but also mired in a public scandal. Xia Shuyun accused Tianwen of infidelity during their marriage, while Xiao Zimo, leveraging his influence, publicly supported the boss's wife. In no time, Tianwen, once the heir to the G Group, became the disgusting scumbag everyone reviled. If you search online now, all you can find are insults, not a single kind word. Tianwen, you reap what you sow, you're in this situation because it's all your own doing. Xia Shuyun sneered. You should think about it carefully. How is it that someone who has regular checkups every 6 months suddenly gets a serious illness? Hearing this, Tianwen felt a chill down his spine and asked in disbelief, did you poison me? Yes. Xia Shuyun admitted cheerfully, then mocked him, you didn't really think I made you breakfast every day after we got married because I loved you, did you? Since you're about to die, let me tell you I'm not infertile. I just didn't want to have your child. At this point, Xia Shuyun touched her belly and smiled, I'm already pregnant with Zimo's baby. Fortunately, you shouldn't live long enough to see our child being born. As she finished, a flash of satisfaction appeared in her eyes, the joy of revenge. Tianwen lay on the hospital bed, dazed. By the time he regained his senses, the sky outside had already darkened. Looking at the court summons on the bedside table and the empty room, Ji Tianwen pulled out the tubes from his body and slowly walked to the window. His parents had been forced to jump, now it was his turn. His heart was dead, and Ji Tianwen no longer had any attachment to this world. He stepped onto the windowsill and jumped. In a high-end cafe. Ji Tianwen, my dad said 3 billion is crucial for the Xia Group. Transfer the money as soon as possible, Xia Shuyun said while stirring her coffee. She had a delicate, oval face, with well-defined features and fair skin. No matter the angle, she looked flawless. Her figure was curvaceous, and just sitting there, she looked like a beautiful painting that captivated the heart. Ji Tianwen stared blankly at her pretty face, his eyes filled with confusion. Hadn't he already jumped to his death? How was he suddenly sitting here? Xia Shuyun furrowed her brows in dissatisfaction. What are you staring at? Nothing. Ji Tianwen quickly averted his gaze, secretly pinching his thigh, which made him wince in pain. The pain meant it wasn't a dream. Xia Shuyun found Ji Tianwen's reaction strange but didn't think much of it. She asked directly, did you hear what I just said? What did you say? 3 billion. Transfer it to the Xia Group as soon as possible. 3 billion. Ji Tianwen slowly began to recall the events. It seemed that in his previous life, he had been badly tricked by this woman, and even heaven couldn't stand it anymore. Now that he had a second chance at life, it was time for him to take revenge. 3 billion. I'll transfer it to Uncle Xia later, Ji Tianwen said with a half smile, taking a sip of coffee. Xia Shuyun nodded in satisfaction. I was planning to go watch a movie with you, but my friend suddenly asked me to go to a concert. We'll have to do it some other time. All right, Ji Tianwen nodded. Chapter 2, Wearing a Wedding Dress, isn't that a bit too much? Of course, Ji Tianwen would never actually send the money. He only agreed to it quickly to let Xia Shuyun feel confident enough to continue her self-destructive journey. After Xia Shuyun left, Ji Tianwen pulled out his phone and immediately called his secretary, Song Yabing. Secretary Song, terminate all cooperation with the Xia Group immediately. Any ongoing or upcoming projects are to be cancelled, and funds withdrawn, Ji Tianwen said in a deep voice. Song Yabing froze on the spot. She had always followed Ji Tianwen's orders without question, and couldn't help but confirm, Mr. Ji, are you saying we should completely withdraw our investments from the Xia Group? Exactly. Ji Tianwen gave a firm reply. After the call ended, Ji Tianwen stood up and walked to the window. Looking down at the dazzling neon lights, the corner of his mouth curled up into a cold arc. The real show was about to begin. After leaving the restaurant, Xia Shuyun got into a black business car. Waiting for her inside was her university classmate, Sun Jujia. Sun Jujia and Xia Shuyun were roommates in college. Thanks to Xia Shuyun, she had received many benefits from Ji Tianwen over the years. Realizing this was a shortcut to success, Sun Jujia focused on how to flatter Xia Shuyun, eventually standing out from the crowd of followers and earning the title of Xia Shuyun's best friend. Jujia, did you take care of the things I asked you to do? Xia Shuyun asked while touching up her makeup in the mirror. Zimo just returned from overseas and hasn't gained much popularity yet. This is his first concert, and if it's empty, it'll be too embarrassing. Don't worry, Xia, I've taken care of everything. Sun Jujia smiled. I've given out all 1,000 tickets, and I told them that they could enter a raffle with the ticket stubs, with a grand prize of 50,000 yuan. It's already been arranged. Free concert tickets and a chance to win a prize. Those poor students have no reason not to attend. Also, I've arranged for a flower-giving segment, and the atmosphere team is all set. Xia Shuyun looked at herself in the mirror and nodded in satisfaction. Forget the flower giving. I'll do it myself, and I'll be wearing a wedding dress. Huh. Sun Jujia was shocked. Xia, wearing a wedding dress. Isn't that a bit too much? She knew about Xia Shuyun's long-standing crush on Xiao Zimo from high school and was aware that Ji Tianwen had a very strong possessiveness. If Ji Tianwen found out that Xia Shuyun wore a wedding dress to give flowers to Xiao Zimo would be in trouble. Of course, that wasn't the real issue. Sun Jujia didn't care whether Xiao Zimo was in trouble or not. What mattered to her was that Ji Tianwen paid her every month to help look after Xia Shuyun. If Ji Tianwen and Xia Shuyun fell out, she wouldn't be able to continue reaping the benefits. Jujia, I'm about to marry that jerk, Ji Tianwen. You can't understand how painful and torturous it is to marry someone you hate, Xia Shuyun said firmly. So, before I marry that bastard, I want to marry Zimo. Even if our marriage has no legal effect. This. Sun Jujia hesitated, wanting to persuade her, but seeing Xia Shuyun's determination, she didn't say more. After all, if Xiao Zimo didn't become popular, the concert tickets wouldn't even sell 100 copies without Xia Shuyun's help. Even if Xia Shuyun really wore a wedding dress and went on stage to give flowers, Ji Tianwen might not even notice. 8 p.m. Golden Cabinet Music Hall. Xiao Zimo stood on stage, performing rap and dance energetically. In the audience below, nearly 1,000 people waved their glow sticks, which they had received before entering. Xiao Zimo was 1.8 meters tall, with pink hair and sharp facial features, along with a well-proportioned body. He was definitely a heartthrob. Though his skills were far below their four returnees in terms of talent, in the current K-pop craze, he still managed to attract a fair number of fans who turned into followers. The atmosphere, which started off cold, gradually warmed up. After an energetic song, Xia Shuyun, wearing a wedding dress and holding a bouquet, stepped onto the stage. As the concert's major sponsor, who paid for all the tickets, the organizers had no reason to stop her from coming on stage. When Xiao Zimo saw Xia Shuyun's outfit, his eyes immediately brightened. Xia Shuyun was wearing a high-end, custom-made wedding dress. From the design, cutting, fabric, and decoration, everything had been meticulously crafted. The diamonds embedded on it were real, and it cost over $1 million. With such a hefty investment, the effect was naturally breathtaking. At this moment, many men in the audience stared in awe, whipping out their phones to snap photos. Xia Shuyun walked up to Xiao Zimo, stopped in front of him, and then raised the microphone. With affectionate eyes, she said, "Zimo, there's something I've wanted to say for a long time. I like you." Her voice echoed throughout the music hall through the sound system. The audience burst into cheers and catcalls. Xia Shuyun continued, "For 3 years in high school, I liked you for 3 whole years. But I didn't have the courage to confess. By the time I gathered the courage, you had already gone abroad. I wanted to come find you, but for various reasons, I had to stay in the country and silently wait for your return. Luckily, I finally waited for you." Xiao Zimo smiled, feeling secretly pleased. The admiration of a woman brought immense mental satisfaction to a man, and if the woman was stunning, that satisfaction only grew. Xia Shuyun took a deep breath and said clearly, "Zimo, I'm willing to marry you. Will you marry me?" Xiao Zimo's smile froze, and the pleasure he felt inside quickly faded into panic and unease. The reason for his change in emotions was, of course, Ji Tianwen. As the heir to the largest listed group in Pingju, if Ji Tianwen wanted to deal with him, it would only take one word. Even without words, there would be people who wanted to please Ji Tianwen targeting him. He had just returned to the country and hadn't started developing yet. He certainly didn't want his idol career to end prematurely. At that moment, the stage lights suddenly went out. When they came back on, Xia Shuyun was no longer on stage. Xiao Zimo continued to perform, no longer interacting with the audience, as if their proposal had never happened. After the concert, Xiao Zimo quickly went backstage and found Xia Shuyun in the rest room. Her eyes were red and swollen, as though she had just been crying, and her mood was extremely low. "Miss Sun, I'd like to speak with Shuyun privately. Could you please step out for a moment?" Xiao Zimo asked politely. Sun Jujia nodded and left the rest room, closing the door behind her. Xiao Zimo slowly squatted down and looked up at Xia Shuyun, who refused to make eye contact with him. He spoke gently, "Shuyun, I actually like you too. The reason I didn't respond to you on stage was to consider your feelings." Chapter 3, Trending on Social Media. HMPH. Summer Shuyun snorted coldly, looking all puffed up with anger. However, the furrowed brow slightly eased up. When Xiao Zimo was a trainee abroad, he spent a lot of time with wealthy women in nightclubs, spending money like water. His ability to read the situation had become masterful by then. Therefore, in his eyes, dealing with someone like Summer Shuyun, who was driven by emotions and romance, was like handling it with ease. Without hesitation, Xiao Zimo grabbed Summer Shuyun's hand. She struggled symbolically for a moment, but then allowed him to hold it, though she still looked angry. Xiao Zimo was unflustered and sighed. "Shuyun, whether you want to admit it or not, we've passed the age where we can act recklessly. You told me just the other day that the family business is facing difficulties and needs Ji Tianwen's help. If I had responded to you on stage, it would have been detrimental to both of us. Summer Shuyun thought for a moment and then nodded helplessly. Seizing the opportunity, Xiao Zimo continued, Shuyun, if love is truly meant to last, it doesn't matter if we're separated by borders. Our hearts are still connected, especially now that we're so close. Brother Zimo, you're right. I was reckless, Summer Shuyun said with a regretful smile. If it were Ji Tianwen, even if she knew she was wrong, she wouldn't admit it. But now, in front of her first love, the boy she had dreamed of during her youth, she could let down her guard. Xiao Zimo raised his hand and gently pinched Summer Shuyun's nose, his eyes filled with tenderness. Shuyun, although you haven't been by my side all these years, you've always been in my heart. We've endured the pain of longing for so long, there's no need to rush this moment. Summer Shuyun smiled brightly, feeling deeply moved. Then she closed her eyes. Xiao Zimo, well aware of her intent, pulled out a freshening spray and quickly sprayed it into his mouth before slowly leaning in towards her full, pink lips. The habit of carrying the spray started when he was a trainee abroad, preparing for encounters with older, wealthy women. But just as they were about to kiss, bang! A loud crash came as the door to the resting room was suddenly slammed open. Both Summer Shuyun and Xiao Zimo jumped back in surprise. Upon seeing that it was Sun Jujia, they both sighed in relief. Summer Shuyun composed herself and was about to voice her displeasure when Sun Jujia, looking flustered, said, Shuyun, something big has happened. What happened? Summer Shuyun asked. You're trending. Sun Jujia replied urgently. I'm not a celebrity, why would I trend? Summer Shuyun replied, confused. Look for yourself. Sun Jujia handed her phone over to Summer Shuyun. Taking the phone, Summer Shuyun saw that the top trending topic in their city was, Summer Shuyun, the daughter of the Xia group, publicly confessed her love to a male singer Clicking into it, she saw that several internet influencers had posted a video. The video, of course, showed Summer Shuyun on stage in her wedding dress, proposing to Xiao Zimo. Shuyun, does Ji Tianwen ever check the trending topics? Sun Jujia asked urgently. How would I know? Summer Shuyun frowned, but soon relaxed and said nonchalantly, even if Ji Tianwen sees it, it doesn't matter. Anyway, Brother Zimo didn't agree. Jujia, when I'm with Brother Zimo, don't mention that annoying name. It ruins my mood. However, despite saying that, she still clicked into the comments section of one of the video posts. If I'm not mistaken, Summer Shuyun is the girlfriend of Ji Tianwen, the heir of Ji Group, right? The two of them announced their wedding plans just 2 months ago. What kind of taste does Summer Shuyun have? I've never even heard of that singer, and he is nowhere near as good looking as Ji Tianwen. Did Ji Tianwen and Summer Shuyun break up? If they did, this is fine. But if they didn't, this is just a slap in the face to Ji Tianwen and the Ji Group. In fact, Ji Tianwen and Summer Shuyun had gained some fame online mainly because Ji Tianwen had once invested 2 billion to save the Xia Group. As a result, many netizens who loved to stir up trouble not only mentioned Ji Group in the comments but also went to Ji Group's official Weibo to leave messages. These people are really ridiculous. Summer Shuyun fumed. Who I like is none of their business. How dare they insult Brother Zimo? Jujia, go and hire some internet trolls to attack those who insulted Brother Zimo. Sun Jujia nodded, took the phone, and left the resting room. Xiao Zimo patted Summer Shuyun on the shoulder with a warm smile, continuing to speak sweet words to ease the mood. Summer Shuyun quickly succumbed to the atmosphere and closed her eyes again. Once again, just as they were about to kiss, the door was slammed open. Summer Shuyun, furious, shouted, Sun Jujia, what on earth are you doing? Shuyun, this is serious. Sun Jujia said, her face dark, as she handed her phone to Summer Shuyun. Looking at the phone, Summer Shuyun saw that Ji Group had posted a Weibo message. The message was short and to the point, saying 2 things. Effective immediately, all cooperation between Ji Group and Xia Group is terminated. The wedding between Mr. Ji Tianwen and Ms. Summer Shuyun, originally planned for next month, is cancelled. Staring at the phone screen, Summer Shuyun was completely stunned. Cooperation terminated. Wedding cancelled. How could this happen? Just 2.5 hours ago, Ji Tianwen had promised her that he would invest 3 billion into the Xia Group. At that moment, her phone rang on the vanity. She snapped out of it, picked up the phone, and saw that it was her father, Xie Jinder, calling. As soon as she answered the phone, her father began questioning her. Summer Shuyun, what on earth are you doing? Who is that singer? Do you even know what our family's situation is right now? Summer Shuyun was about to explain, but Xie Jinder cut her off in an authoritative tone. You need to call Ji Tianwen right now and tell him to continue the cooperation with Xie Group and transfer the 3 billion investment immediately. Got it, Summer Shuyun said impatiently, hanging up and dialing Ji Tianwen's number. The phone rang twice and, as usual, was quickly answered. Summer Shuyun coldly said, Ji Tianwen, what do you mean by this? Shouldn't I be the one asking you that? Ji Tianwen chuckled lightly. You're still wearing the title of my girlfriend, yet you're in a wedding dress, holding flowers, and proposing to another man. What do you mean by that? Are you blaming me for being petty? Summer Shuyun snapped. Ji Tianwen, I never expected you to be such a petty person, nitpicking over such a small matter. Small matter? Ji Tianwen almost laughed out loud. Chapter 4, Arranged Blind Date. Summer Shuyun was too tired to argue with Ji Tianwen anymore. Impatiently, she said, there's no point in debating right or wrong now. Hurry up and tell your parents to delete the post on Weibo and continue the partnership with the Summer Group. And about the 3 billion you promised me, transfer it now. Ji Tianwen scoffed, what if I don't do as you say? Then we break up. Summer Shuyun said without hesitation. Over the past 5 years, these 4 words were Ji Tianwen's weak spot. As soon as she said them, Ji Tianwen would comply, agreeing to anything, which had turned into a conditioned reflex for Summer Shuyun. However, this time, it didn't work. Oh, then let us break up, Ji Tianwen responded indifferently. What did you say? Summer Shuyun couldn't believe her ears. Ji Tianwen calmly replied, I don't repeat myself. Summer Shuyun gritted her teeth. I'm giving you one last chance. Transfer the 3 billion you promised to the Summer Group's account right now, and we can still talk. Talk about what? Smack my head. Ji Tianwen's tone grew harsh. 3 billion. Does the Summer Group deserve it? Do you deserve it? Do you dare insult me? Jerk. You've got some nerve. The call ended. Summer Shuyun was furious, her anger about to explode. She called back immediately, but the call wouldn't go through. Ji Tianwen actually blocked me. Summer Shuyun said in disbelief. Sun Juju looked regretful, feeling guilty. If she had stopped Summer Shuyun earlier, things wouldn't have escalated like this, and Ji Tianwen wouldn't have turned his back on them. At that moment, Summer Jinder's call came in again. Summer Shuyun answered the phone, and she could clearly hear that her father was even more upset than during their last call. Did you call him or not? I did. Then why hasn't the G Group taken any action? Summer Jinder asked angrily. What did you say to Ji Tianwen? Summer Shuyun didn't hide anything and recounted her conversation with Ji Tianwen truthfully. Fool! Summer Jinder's voice was filled with anger. You knew Ji Tianwen was already upset, and you kept fueling the fire. How did I end up with such a brainless daughter? Summer Shuyun, now equally enraged, snapped, Dad, I just don't like Ji Tianwen. I've had enough of him over the years. I don't believe we can't survive without him. With that, she hung up the phone and switched it off. Watching the whole thing unfold, Xiao Zimo sent Sun Jiju away and calmed Summer Shuyun down before asking, Shuyun, do you really hate Ji Tianwen? Exactly. I hate him to the core. I have an idea that can help you get back at him. Summer Shuyun's eyes lit up. Zimo, tell me. Xiao Zimo spoke slowly, Shuyun, the best way to take revenge on someone isn't to stay away from them, but to get close, take everything from them, and make them wish they were dead. Ji Tianwen still has some use to us. You can pretend to like him, get him to help you start an entertainment company, and then sign me as one of its artists. Once that happens, we'll have plenty of alone time. When I become the top star, we won't need Ji Tianwen anymore, and I'll reveal our relationship then. In a private villa, a charming woman was leaning on Ji Tianwen's arm, smiling contentedly. The woman appeared to be in her 30s, but in reality, she was in her 40s. Her appearance was elegant, every gesture exuding grace and a noble aura. She wore simple yet classy clothes that showed off her good taste. This woman was Ji Tianwen's mother, Bai Yueguang. Son, what made you suddenly see things clearly? Bai Jiyu asked with a smile. Ji Tianwen casually replied, awakening can happen in an instant. I was too foolish before. No matter what, it's good that you figured it out, Bai Jiyu said with relief. I got a call from Secretary Song. When you told her you wanted to pull out of all investments in the summer group, I thought she was joking, but it turned out it was real. She squeezed Ji Tianwen's hand and said earnestly, it's fine to be foolish in the past, but don't keep making the same mistakes. If you want to sever ties, do it completely. Don't leave any connections with the summer group. Mom, pulling out is just the beginning, Ji Tianwen said calmly. In his past life, Summer Shuyun had set him up and even poisoned him. If he could let go of such deep hatred, then he'd be wasting the chance to live again. After thinking for a moment, Bai Jiyu said, if you want to get revenge on the summer group, it's actually simple. Your father and I. Mom, you and Dad can't help me forever, Ji Tianwen interrupted. While you can still protect me, I need to grow quickly. When you get old, I'll be the one to support you. Bai Jiyu's eyes reddened. She took out her phone and said, Old Ji, did you hear what your son said? Ji Tianwen was momentarily stunned, then responded with a look of helplessness. Their relationship had been strained since 5 years ago when Ji Tianwen insisted on investing in the summer group. They always communicated through Bai Jiyu. Ji Tianwen took a deep breath and took the phone from his mother. Dad, I was wrong. There was a brief silence before a deep, authoritative voice came from the other end, find some time to come home for dinner. The phone hung up. Bai Jiyu smiled. Your dad scolds you, but he is probably happy right now. By the way, do you remember Meng Lei? Meng Lei? Ji Tianwen was momentarily confused, then asked, the young lady from the Meng group who went abroad for further studies. In Pingju City, the Meng group, like the summer group, was a second-tier company. In terms of power, it was far inferior to the Ji group. Ji Tianwen remembered Meng Lei not only because they moved in the same circles but also because in his past life, Meng Lei had colluded with Summer Shuyun to steal business secrets and sabotage the Ji group. That's right. Bai Jiyu said. Meng Changming had a drink with your father the day before yesterday. He said his daughter is coming back tomorrow and wants you to pick her up from the airport. I think you should go. Ji Tianwen immediately understood his mother was trying to set him up on a blind date. Even though everyone knew that he was still deeply in love with Summer Shuyun, second-tier companies like the Meng Group had never given up on trying to court Ji Tianwen. Worried that her son might refuse, Bai Jiyu quickly began to sing Meng Lei's praises. Chapter 5, It Feels Like Being Kept. From her figure to her appearance, from her cultivation to her ability, from her personality to her character, Bai Jiyu's praise of Meng Lei was truly all-encompassing. Her intention was simple, to prevent her foolish son from being dragged into the abyss once again by Xie Shuyun. Of course, there were also other considerations related to benefits. Because Meng Lei was the only heir of the Meng group, Bai Jiyu was genuinely trying to pair her son with the Meng family's daughter. After all, marrying Meng Lei would mean controlling the Meng group. Mom, stop it, I'll go, Ji Tianwen raised his hands in surrender. Really? Bai Jiyu exclaimed in surprise. Good, good. If you win over Meng Lei, you'll have made a great contribution. Just as she finished speaking, the phone rang. Ji Tianwen glanced at his phone and saw that it was Meng Changming's wife, Chen Yuanshuan, calling. Without a doubt, it was because the Meng family, after seeing the trending topic, had become more interested in him as their son-in-law. The next morning at 9 a.m., Ji Tianwen sat in a cafe at Pingju Airport, patiently waiting for Meng Lei's arrival. About 10 minutes later, a faint fragrance filled the air. Ji Tianwen looked away from his phone screen and looked up to see a young woman around his age. She wore a white suit, black base shirt, black pants, and high heels, classic office attire for a goddess of the workplace. Her features were as if sculpted by a master, sharp and clear, with deep wine-red hair loosely falling over her shoulders. Her sharp, almond-shaped eyes held a piercing light. Simply standing there, she exuded elegance and confidence. I'm Meng Lei, the woman extended her right hand. Ji Tianwen stood up and also offered his right hand. Ji Tianwen. After the handshake, Meng Lei sat down and ordered a cup of black coffee. Facing his former enemy in this life, Ji Tianwen felt calm, with no hatred. Business, after all, is like war, one should use all methods to win. Moreover, the underhanded tactics Meng Lei employed were nothing but basic moves in business warfare. To be honest, I'm surprised that you came, Ji Shao, Meng Lei said, her face serious, showing little emotion. Her attitude wasn't exactly warm, but it didn't feel cold either. Ji Tianwen smiled lightly and casually replied, life is full of surprises. Meng Lei nodded slightly and, without much small talk, said directly, my parents are trying to matchmake me with you, I have no objection. What about you? Ji Tianwen was taken aback for a moment, surprised by Meng Lei's directness, but he nodded and said, I'm here today, which already shows my stance. Then, from now on, we are nominally boyfriend and girlfriend. Nominally? Ji Shao, not everyone has the right and freedom to pursue true love, and I believe you wouldn't fall in love with me at first sight, right? What if I say that I did fall for you at first sight? Then it wouldn't be love at first sight, it would be more accurate to say it was lust, Meng Lei replied, before pulling 2 A4 sheets from her bag and placing them on the table. This is the agreement I drafted on the plane. I've already signed it. If Ji Shao finds it okay, just sign it. Ji Tianwen picked up the paper and saw that the agreement was about their establishing a nominal boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. The clauses were not many, with the exception of one that forbade forced physical relations. The other terms were fair and reasonable. What intrigued Ji Tianwen most was that the agreement's duration was 6 months. After 6 months, the agreement would end, and Meng Lei would give him 20 million yuan as compensation. Miss Meng, this 20 million makes it feel like I'm being kept by you, Ji Tianwen said. Meng Lei took a sip of her coffee and replied, this is exactly what Ji Shao deserves. I just returned to the country and want to focus on my career. Being Ji Shao's nominal girlfriend is very beneficial to me. This was Meng Lei's honest thought and also an indisputable fact. As Ji Tianwen's girlfriend, she wouldn't have to worry about being forced into more matchmaking. Moreover, Ji Tianwen's status could open many doors for her career. If Ji Shao thinks anything is wrong, you can speak up now, Meng Lei gestured. Ji Tianwen shook his head and laughed. The terms are fine, I'm just worried that you'll really fall for me and want to end this agreement, crying and begging for a renewal. Meng Lei was stunned, then smiled, Ji Shao, you really are humorous. Ji Tianwen didn't dwell on this topic. He signed both copies of the agreement and took his own. Lei, do you need me to go back home with you? Ji Tianwen asked with a smile. Lei. Meng Lei frowned slightly at the nickname, feeling uneasy. She said, Ji Shao, I think. You shouldn't call me Ji Shao anymore, the agreement is signed, I'm now your boyfriend, Ji Tianwen interrupted. Wow, he's getting into character fast. Meng Lei's lips twitched, but she nodded, you're right, Ji Shao. Then I'll just call you Tianwen. Okay, Ji Tianwen agreed. Before Meng Lei could continue speaking, her phone rang. It was her father, Meng Changming, calling. Lei, you've met Ji Shao, right? I have, and the conversation went well. That's good. Your mom and I are busy, so don't rush home. Enjoy the day out and come back in the evening. With that, he hung up. Meng Lei shook her head with a smile, then looked at Ji Tianwen and said, that was my dad. He heard that our conversation went well, and now he doesn't even want me to come home. Then let me show you around and see the changes in Pingju over the years. Sure. Ji Tianwen went to pay the bill, and Meng Lei left the cafe first. As soon as she stepped outside, she saw Xie Shuyan and Sun Jizhi walking towards her. She didn't recognize Sun Jizhi, but Xie Shuyan was another story. Xie Shuyan. What a coincidence, Meng Lei greeted with a smile. Xie Shuyan stopped in her tracks and immediately recognized who the woman was. Meng Lei. When did you come back? Xie Shuyan furrowed her brows, clearly not very fond of Meng Lei. This was because, years ago, the two of them had often been compared in the industry. From appearance to figure, to ability, they were judged and compared from every angle. For a long time, no one could determine who was better. Until Ji Tianwen, in order to please Xie Shuyan, invested 2 billion in the Xie family, and Xie Shuyan finally gained the upper hand over Meng Lei. However, before Xie Shuyan could flaunt her victory, Meng Lei went abroad for further studies, and they hadn't seen each other for years. Chapter 6 Because I am kind. I just got off the plane, and less than an hour later, my boyfriend picked me up. Meng Lei said lightly. People who are more career-oriented tend to be more competitive. Meng Lei didn't mention the fact that she was outshined by Xie Shuyun before going abroad, but she didn't really mind. Your boyfriend? Xie Shuyun asked with interest. I'm curious about what kind of young talent can win over someone as picky as you. Don't worry, you'll see him soon. As soon as Meng Lei finished speaking, Ji Qianwen walked out of the coffee shop. When Xie Shuyun saw Ji Qianwen, her eyes evaded for a moment. She came to the airport this time to see Xiao Zimo off. The two had already made plans last night. After much reflection, Xie Shuyun decided to continue to flatter Ji Qianwen for the sake of her bright future with Brother Zimo and the future of the Xie group. She even thought about going to the coffee shop, calling Ji Qianwen, lowering her attitude, and if necessary admitting her mistake, so that Ji Qianwen would change his mind. But what I didn't expect was that I met the real person before I even made the call. Ji Qianwen seemed not to see Xie Shuyun and walked straight to Meng Lei. Meng Lei naturally put her hand on Ji Qianwen's arm and said to Xie Shuyun with a smile, "Let me introduce you, this is my boyfriend." Are you kidding?" Xie Shuyun said in disbelief. "No kidding." Ji Qian asked back, turned his head to look at Meng Lei, and said in a gentle tone, Lei, let's go." "Yeah." Meng Lei responded and took a step forward with her long legs. "Wait." Xie Shuyun stopped in front of the two of them, took a deep breath, and said to Ji Qian, "I apologize to you for what happened last night. Can you please stop making trouble? You don't need to apologize to me. I don't think you did anything wrong." Ji Qianwen said calmly, "You finally waited for your Prince Charming to return home. I should bless you. I was actually rehearsing a play last night." Xie Shuyun gave the reason that she and Xiao Zimo had discussed together. Ji Qianwen remained unmoved and said, "Oh, then you acted quite well." "You?" Xie Shuyun was immediately annoyed. She had already humbled herself and apologized, but he still had this attitude. Sun Jujie quickly tried to smooth things over. "Master Ji, I know you are angry now, and Xie feels very guilty and regretful. Uncle Xie is in the hospital, but Xie still came to you to apologize as soon as possible. So, should I give Miss Xie a banner with the words, 'Contemporary Great Filial Daughter,' written on it?" Ji Qian asked jokingly. "Oh." Sun Jujie was stunned. According to her expectation, Ji Qianwen should be deeply moved, but she didn't expect him to tease her, which made her speechless. Xie Shuyun lost her patience and shouted, "Ji Qianwen, I came to you specially to apologize, what else do you want? Are you sure you showed up at the airport to apologize to me?" Ji Qianwen's smile disappeared instantly, his eyes flashed with a sharp light, and he said in a cold voice, "Do you want me to check the information of the registration personnel to see if there is anyone named Xiao Zimo among them?" You? Xie Shuyun was so angry that she couldn't speak, but she didn't dare to retort. Because Ji Qianwen really has that ability. Also because Brother Zimo had just boarded the plane. So, she decisively changed the subject and said, "Ji Qianwen, have you been dating Meng Lei behind my back for a long time? We just became boyfriend and girlfriend." "Impossible. We just broke up last night. How could you find a new girlfriend so soon?" "All I can say is, everything is possible." Seeing that there was no way to make a breakthrough from Ji Qianwen, Xie Shuyun looked at Meng Lei with anger and asked, "Can you swear that you and Ji Qianwen just got together?" "I dare." Meng Lei answered without hesitation, and then asked, "But why should I swear?" "If you don't swear, it means you are guilty, which means you and Ji Qianwen have been secretly together behind my back for a long time. Don't tell me it's not true. Even if it is true, what can you do?" Meng Lei said calmly, "You posted me and Tianwen online, saying that I'm a mistress and Tianwen is a scumbag. You think I don't dare? You can give it a try and see where public opinion will stand." Xie Shuyun's face was extremely gloomy, but she really didn't dare to do that. Firstly, this didn't fit in with the plan she and Brother Zimo had made. Secondly, even if Ji Qianwen and Meng Lei were posted online, it was hard to say how many people would believe her at this critical juncture. Furthermore, the public relations department of G Group is not there to do nothing, and she is not sure she can win the war of public opinion. "Let's go, Lei." Ji Qianwen held Meng Lei's soft and cold hand and strode away. Xie Shuyun looked at the two people's backs and couldn't help feeling annoyed. Although she didn't like Ji Qianwen, she still felt uncomfortable seeing Ji Qianwen and Meng Lei holding hands. It's like your pet dog running to lick its new owner. In a business car. Meng Lei pressed a button and saw a screen rise up in front of her, separating the front cockpit from the rear passenger area. Have you really broken up with Xie Shuyun? Meng Lei asked. Just now outside the coffee shop, she was really worried that Ji Tianwen would not cooperate with her. But what was unexpected was that Ji Tianwen was not only very cooperative, but also seemed to have really lost interest in Xie Shuyun. This made her wonder, could it be that the rumors she had heard before were all false? Of course the breakup is true. Before we even got married, she'd already started proposing to other men. If you don't break up with a girlfriend like this, are you waiting to be cheated on? Ji Chen asked reasonably. Meng Lei couldn't find a reason to refute, so she continued to ask, have you ever thought about taking revenge on Xie Shuyun and that unknown third-rate singer? I haven't thought about it. So generous. It's not magnanimity. Why is that? Ji Tianwen raised a finger, placed it diagonally in front of him, and said seriously, because I am kind. Meng Lei was speechless. Whether it is a good thing or not is another matter, the main thing is that the gesture is very confusing. Shaking her head, Meng Lei said, in a few days, the Pingju Chamber of Commerce will hold a general meeting. I want to officially announce our relationship at that time. What do you think? All is fine. You decide. Ji Tianwen replied casually. However, he said it casually. But he thought of a major event that happened in his previous life when he attended the Chamber of Commerce's general meeting. If we seize this opportunity, it will be of great benefit to the Ji Group. After living a new life, Ji Tianwen no longer set his sights on this corner of Pingju City. Being the king in the city is not a skill. Being the best in the province, the country, and even the world is really awesome. Chapter 7, When the Wall Falls, Everyone Pushes Back. The important matter that Ji Tianwen was thinking of was related to the president of Pingju Chamber of Commerce. The president of Pingju Chamber of Commerce is named Bai Yueguang, who is exactly 80 years old this year. He is not a businessman but a feng shui master. On the surface, Bai Yueguang does not have any deep background, but his network of contacts is unfathomable. Since its establishment, Pingju Chamber of Commerce has faced crises several times, and it was Bai Yueguang who stepped forward to save the tide. According to his memories from his previous life, at this Chamber of Commerce plenary meeting, Bai Yueguang will publicly offer a reward of 100 million for a piece of lightning-struck wood that is 500 years old. Coincidentally, the old residence of the chairman of the Miao Group happened to have a jujube tree that was more than 500 years old, which was struck by lightning just a month ago. Miao Group sold it at a low price, selling the entire date tree to Bai Yueguang for 50 million. Since then, a relationship has been established between the two parties. Soon after, the Miao Group began to flourish and overtook other companies. Before the collapse of the Ji Group, it took only a few years to expand the company's scale to a level not much different from that of the Ji Group's heyday. Miao Ruifeng, the heir of the Miao Group, publicly humiliated Ji Tianwen many times. On the one hand, it is because when the wall falls, everyone pushes it. On the other hand, Miao Ruifeng is Meng Lei's fanatical pursuer. At that time, Meng Lei and Ji Tianwen were in a hostile relationship, so Miao Ruifeng naturally wanted to gain Meng Lei's favor by suppressing Ji Tianwen. Lei, do me a favor. Ji Tian asked. Meng Lei asked in surprise, is there anything I can do to help you in Pingju City? Miao Ruifeng, do you still remember me? Miao Ruifeng, I have some impression of him. Any impression? Hearing this, Ji Tianwen silently suggested in his heart that young Master Miao observe 3 seconds of silence. Miao Ruifeng has publicly expressed his love for Meng Lei many times, but in the end, Meng Lei only said that he had some impression of him, which is really sad. There is a jujube tree in his old house that was struck by lightning. You can find a way to get the tree. Just tell me how much it costs and I will reimburse you. Ji Tianwen said. Meng Lei frowned slightly, not understanding Ji Tianwen's intention. However, he still nodded and agreed. In the blink of an eye, a week passed. For the Xie Group, this week seemed as long as a century. Ever since the Ji Group announced that it would sever all cooperation with the Xie Group and began to withdraw its investment, the Xie Group fell directly from the edge of the cliff into the abyss. Not only is the business in jeopardy, but the bank is also urging us to repay the loan, as if it wants to wipe out all of us. Xie Shuyun contacted Ji Tianwen many times, but to no avail. Whether going to Ji Group or to Ji Tianwen's residence, there was no one to be seen. A week ago, Xie Jinder and his daughter Xie Shuyan agreed that Ji Tianwen was just angry and everything would be fine once he calmed down. But now a week has passed and the Ji group has shown no intention of negotiating, and Ji Tianwen cannot be contacted. This made Xie Jinder and Xie Shuyan give up their fantasies and realize clearly that Ji Tianwen was serious this time. Shuyun, when you meet Ji Tianwen this time, you must persuade him to change his mind no matter what. Xie Jinder said with a serious expression, you have also seen that, at least at the current stage, Xie group cannot do without Ji group. Dad, I understand. Xie Shuyan nodded, with a hint of impatience between her brows. The reason why she agreed so readily was naturally not because of her father's authority, but because of Xiao Zimo's patient persuasion over the past few days. To put it bluntly, the entertainment industry is a circle of fame and fortune. Xiao Zimo, who is in the middle of it and has been immersed in the Korean culture, knows better than anyone how to maximize benefits. Now that he has met Xie Shuyan, a love-brained woman who can help him get on board the big ship of Ji Group, he naturally will not miss the opportunity. So, while painting a rosy picture for Xie Shuyan, he constantly instilled in Xie Shuyan the idea of profit first, thus consolidating Xie Shuyan's idea of playing nice with Ji Tianwen. Seeing his daughter listen to his advice, Xie Jinder nodded with satisfaction and said, Shuyan, you should admit your mistakes and apologize. Ji Tianwen appears to be trying to kill you, but in fact he just wants you to bow your head. For the sake of Xie Group, I have no choice but to let you down. Xie Shuyan nodded. In fact, she didn't care about the Xie Group. She was thinking about the bright future of her and her brother Zimo. The father and daughter set out from the hospital and went to Pingju Chamber of Commerce. When you enter the Chamber of Commerce, you can see that many Chamber of Commerce members and local famous entrepreneurs are already present. In the past few years, whenever Xie Jinder showed up, he would become the focus of everyone's attention, and he would be greeted with smiling faces and friendly hands. But today, it is different. Everyone present just glanced at Xie Jinder and then looked away, as if they didn't see him. Even though Xie Jinder had anticipated this situation, he still couldn't help but look gloomy. Since no one greeted him, Xie Jinder had no choice but to take Xie Shuyan to a random table to act as a background. Not long after the two of them sat down, they heard someone outside the door shouting, Ji Group, General Manager Ji Tianwen is here. It was as if the mute button was pressed, and the originally noisy banquet hall suddenly became silent. Many people gathered at the entrance of the banquet hall, quietly waiting for Ji Tianwen to appear. After a moment, Ji Tianwen stepped into the banquet hall. He was dressed in a black suit, with a smile as warm as spring breeze on his face, and he stood proudly with an upright posture. His every move revealed a luxurious temperament, instantly making everyone around him become a foil. Looking at Ji Tianwen shaking hands and greeting everyone, Xie Shuyan couldn't help feeling a little dazed. In the past few years, she has always been the one standing next to Ji Tianwen. This time, looking at it from a different perspective, I actually felt that Ji Tianwen had an indescribable charm. Shuyun, let's go. Xie Jinder called his daughter and walked towards Ji Tianwen. The father and daughter took a lot of effort to squeeze to the front of the crowd. Xie Jinder stretched out his right hand and greeted with a smile on his face, Tianwen, Shuyun has been talking about you in my ear just now. When she saw you come in, she kept urging me to come over quickly. She wanted to explain the previous misunderstanding to you. The surroundings fell silent again, and everyone looked at Ji Tianwen. His reaction will determine their subsequent attitude towards Xie Jinder. Ji Tianwen stretched out his hand and shook it with Xie Jinder, saying in a lukewarm tone, Boss Xie, what happened between your daughter and me is all in the past. There is no misunderstanding. I have to congratulate your daughter for finally finding true love. Hearing this, Xie Jinder's smile froze on his face. Just calling him Mr. Xie is enough to explain the problem. You know, before this, Ji Tianwen had always called him Uncle Xie both in private and in public. The people around couldn't help but burst into laughter. Chapter 8 Give a response. Boss Xie, congratulations. Your daughter has found true love. It's a cause for celebration. What is the most valuable thing these days? True love is the most valuable. Your daughter has the courage to pursue true love. I really admire her. Boss Xie, I remember that the male singer your daughter proposed to didn't seem to respond on the spot. The people around him laughed and said hurtful words, which made Xie Jinder look even uglier. Giving up the leading position of Pingju City's business district for a third-rate singer with no fame is indeed a joke that is enough to make people laugh out loud. While making fun of Xie Jinder, many people present also became active. Since there is no hope for Xie Jinder's daughter, then perhaps there is hope for his own daughter. For a while, many people made up their minds to let their daughters contact Ji Tianwen later and have a good chat with him. If they really like each other, then they will be very successful. At this moment, Meng Changming and his daughter Meng Lei arrived. The appearance of the two, like that of Xie Jinder and his daughter Xie Shuyun, did not cause much commotion. Of course, the main reason is that Ji Tianwen has not left yet. If Meng Changming and Meng Lei had staggered their time, this would definitely not be the effect. The reason is very simple. The Meng Group is involved in booming new industries, unlike the Xie Group, which is basically all sunset industries. Lei, you're late. Ji Tianwen said with a smile, without any blame in his tone. Everyone around was stunned. Everyone felt that the way young Master Ji addressed Meng Lei seemed a little too intimate. Meng Lei walked to Ji Tianwen, took his arm, and said with a sweet smile, "Putting on makeup and picking clothes took up a lot of time, mainly because I was afraid of embarrassing you." When this look came out, everyone present was stunned. The way Ji Tianwen addressed Meng Lei, as well as Meng Lei's actions and words, all revealed one thing: Ji Tianwen and Meng Lei were in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Realizing this, everyone was immediately filled with disappointment. I thought my daughter had a chance, but unexpectedly, the daughter of the Meng Group got there first. However, if you think about it carefully, there is nothing strange about it. After all, Meng Changming only has one daughter, Meng Lei. If he marries Meng Lei, it would be equivalent to taking control of the Meng Group. Even as powerful as the Ji Group is, the Meng Group cannot be said to be dispensable. Uncle Meng, I was planning to go out to greet you later, but I didn't expect you to come in first. Ji Tianwen smiled apologetically and held Meng Changming's hand. Meng Changming patted Ji Tianwen on the shoulder and said amiably, "Tianwen, this is going too far. We are all family, there is no need to do that. As long as you and our Xiaolei are doing well, Uncle Meng will be satisfied." Although it was obvious enough, some people still refused to give up and asked, "Master Ji, are you and Miss Meng Lei?" Ji Tianwen replied with a smile, "Meng Lei is my girlfriend." After saying that, he put his arm around Meng Lei's shoulders and walked towards the seat in the middle of the banquet hall. Although everyone present felt regretful, they suppressed their emotions and showed great enthusiasm towards Meng Changming. Seeing this scene, Xie Jinder was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. Obviously, he was the one who enjoyed this treatment in the past, but now it has become Meng Changming. Xie Shuyun looked at Ji Tianwen, who was sitting with Meng Lei, and felt equally uncomfortable. At least during the time when she and Ji Tianwen were boyfriend and girlfriend, she never knew what it felt like to be ignored. Now that she had tasted it, it was really uncomfortable. "Tianwen, I'm very curious, why do you want the tree that was struck by lightning in Miao Ruifeng's old house?" Meng Lei asked. "She bought that tree for 5 million 2 days ago. She insisted on giving the 5 million because Miao Ruifeng insisted on giving it to her. Meng Lei didn't have the habit of taking advantage of others, so she transferred 5 million yuan. Want to know?" Ji Tianwen said with a wicked smile, "Kiss me and I'll tell you." "Mr. Ji, I think you have forgotten the agreement between us," Meng Lei said in a cold tone. Ji Tianwen said with a smile, Lei, I will not do a business that loses money. You may think that I lost money by buying a dead tree for 5 million, but I can create at least 100 times more value with what I bought with 5 million. I don't believe it," Meng Lei said without hesitation. 5 million, multiplied 100 times, is 500 million. She really didn't believe that Ji Tianwen could sell a dead tree for 500 million yuan. "If you don't believe me, then just wait and see. It will be tonight." Ji Tianwen tapped the table with his fingers and said calmly, "To be precise, within half an hour." His tone was calm, but revealed full confidence. Meng Lei was very curious, and was about to ask Ji Tian about the source of such confidence. Suddenly, a young man came closer. The young man was in his 20s, thin and handsome, but not very tall. He was the eldest son of the chairman of the Miao Group, Miao Ruifeng. Miao Ruifeng first glared at Ji Tianwen angrily, then said to Meng Lei, "I have something to say to you alone." Meng Lei didn't respond, but turned to look at Ji Tianwen beside her. The moment he saw Miao Ruifeng, the humiliation he suffered in his previous life came to his mind. Ji Tianwen could understand Miao Ruifeng's approach, but that did not stop him from holding a grudge. Immediately, He put his arm around Meng Lei's shoulders and said with a half smile, "Miao Ruifeng, you are so arrogant to let my girlfriend talk to you alone in front of me. What's wrong with being arrogant?" Miao Ruifeng said sternly, "Others are afraid of you, but I am not. Ji Tianwen, you are trash, take your dirty hands away. Young man, think before you speak. Go ask your father if he dares to talk to me like that." Ji Qian asked in a condescending tone. "Ji Tianwen, you bastard, stop pretending to be so great in front of me." Miao Ruifeng said angrily, "Don't you just have a good father? I am no worse than you." After that, he said to Meng Lei, "I know you definitely look down on trash like Ji Tianwen. What the Ji group can give, our Miao group can also give. You don't have to wrong yourself." Meng Lei shook her head and laughed, looking at Miao Ruifeng as if he were a fool. If what the Ji group can give, the Miao group can also give, then does she still need to sign an agreement with Ji Tianwen? Ji Tianwen slowly stood up, walked to Miao Ruifeng, and slapped him with his backhand. Bang! A crisp slapping sound was heard, attracting the attention of people around. Miao Ruifeng took 2 steps back, covered his face, and looked at Ji Tianwen in disbelief. He never expected that Ji Tianwen would dare to hit him. Meng Lei was also surprised, but said nothing. Ji Tianwen looked at Miao Ruifeng, who was covering his face with his hands, and said expressionlessly, "Little guy, if I am trash, then who are you?" Chapter 9 Provocation. For the second generation in Pingju City, if money is used as the measurement standard. All in all, Ji Tianwen, who had invested more than 10 billion yuan in the Xia group, was undoubtedly the most wasteful one. But others are not much better. At least in terms of career, no one has made any particularly great achievements. The reason why Ji Tianwen slapped him was not only because of personal grudges, but also because he represented the Ji group on this occasion. Miao Ruifeng calling him trash is equivalent to scolding the Ji group. What's going on? A tall and thin middle-aged man walked quickly to Miao Ruifeng's side. He was the chairman of Miao Group and Miao Ruifeng's father, named Bai Yueguang. Miao Ruifeng did not reply. He glared at Ji Tianwen fiercely, clenched his fists, and was so angry that even his breathing became heavy. The witnesses around walked up to Bai Yueguang and whispered what had happened. After hearing this, Bai Yueguang cursed his son for looking for trouble. At the same time, he turned his gaze to Ji Tianwen and said with a smile, "Mr. Ji, it's a bit unreasonable to hit someone just because you don't agree with him at first sight." "Mr. Miao, I don't hit everyone. I only hit those who talk bad," Ji Tianwen said lightly. Bai Yueguang's already stiff smile looked even more awkward when he heard this. His original intention was to let Ji Tianwen give him a way out. After all, his son was beaten, and it was hit in the face. As a father, he couldn't just remain silent. Even if Ji Tianwen casually explained that he couldn't control his temper at the time, Bai Yueguang would just take advantage of the situation and not pursue the matter any further. But what was unexpected was that Ji Tianwen didn't give any face at all. Not only did he not even bother to give a perfunctory explanation, he even called Miao Ruifeng a foul-mouthed person. This made Bai Yueguang unable to get off the stage immediately, and his expression looked extremely interesting. After holding it in for a long time, Bai Yueguang snorted coldly, and said in a more severe tone, "Mr. Ji, as the heir of the Ji group, is this all you have?" Ji Tianwen raised his eyebrows slightly and was about to start a retort on the spot. But before he could say anything, Xia Jinder angrily said, "Boss Miao, do you feel guilty and want to use moral kidnapping?" He has been waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity to show goodwill to Ji Tianwen. Now that the opportunity finally came, he acted decisively. Bai Yueguang was unhappy at that time. If it were the period when Xia Jinder was still clinging to the Ji group, he would have given the other party some leeway. But now that the Ji group has kicked Xia Jinder away, Xia Jinder still dares to jump up and down in front of him. Does he really think he has no temper? Bai Yueguang did not tolerate Xia Jinder at all, and the two started to quarrel on the spot. Lei, give me a handful of melon seeds," Ji Tianwen asked. Meng Lei stood up, grabbed a handful of melon seeds from the dried fruit plate on the table and handed them to Ji Tianwen. After Ji Tianwen took it, he handed it to Meng Lei. "I don't want to eat." Meng Lei shook her head. "I didn't ask you to eat them. You help me crack the seeds. Once you have cracked 100 seeds, I will eat them all in one go. This guy is really rude." Meng Lei secretly complained in her heart, but still did as she was told. Xia Shuyan's eyes were always fixed on Ji Tianwen, her fists clenched tightly, hatred revealed in her eyes. Even now, Ji Tianwen acts heartless and unyielding, and refuses to be persuaded. But she didn't believe that Ji Tianwen had completely given up on her. Therefore, it is very likely that Meng Lei is a fake girlfriend that Ji Tianwen found to make her feel a sense of crisis. Thinking of this, Xia Shuyan sneered in her heart, "Such a childish trick, you have the nerve to show it off, do you think I'm a fool?" At this moment, a voice came from outside the door again, "President of Pingju Chamber of Commerce, President Bai Yueguang is here." Hearing the shout, everyone headed towards the banquet hall door. Bai Yueguang and Xia Jinder also stopped wrestling tacitly. The two of them snorted coldly and went to their own seats. The only difference from previous years is that Xia Jinder's position was swapped with Meng Changming. Miao Ruifeng walked behind Ji Tianwen and said in a low voice, "Ji Tianwen, don't be too proud too soon. Sooner or later, I will make you cry and you won't be able to find the tune. Har har, do you feel that what you did just now was not enough and you want me to reward you again?" Ji Tian asked with narrowed eyes and slightly raised corners of his mouth, giving people a very dangerous feeling. Miao Ruifeng was not panicked at all, and sneered, "I don't believe you dare to touch me again." His confidence came from the old man who was slowly walking into the banquet hall. The old man was unkempt, ragged, and slovenly, looking no different from a homeless person sleeping in a garbage dump. However, it was this old man who looked like a tramp that made no one present dare to neglect him. This person is the president of Pingju Chamber of Commerce, Bai Yueguang. What Bai Yueguang pays most attention to are rules. A phrase he often says is, "There is no order without rules." In addition, Bai Yueguang really dared not give face to anyone. Not to mention Ji Tianwen, even if Ji Tianwen's father Ji Wuyong himself was present, Bai Yueguang would dare to follow the rules. "Trash. I called you trash, and you went ahead and hit me." Miao Ruifeng provoked again, trying to anger Ji Tianwen so that Bai Yueguang would come to help him avenge himself. Ji Tianwen chuckled and said, "Don't worry, little brat. It's not easy to get beaten. I don't need to do it myself. Your father will give you a big slap in the face later." After saying that, he stood up first. Everyone present also stood up and welcomed Bai Yueguang with applause. Bai Yueguang walked to the main seat, raised his hand and pressed it down, signaling everyone to take a seat. After everyone calmed down, he put his hands on the edge of the table and said slowly, "Before the meeting starts, I would like to ask you to do me a favor." As soon as the words were spoken, many people immediately seized the opportunity and started to flatter him. "President, if you have any instructions, just tell us and we will do it. President, you work hard for the Chamber of Commerce day and night, and it is our responsibility to share your worries. It is my great honor to be able to help you." Bai Yueguang waved his hand to stop the noise, and then said, "I urgently need to find trees that have been struck by lightning. The peach tree must be more than 200 years old, and the jujube tree must be more than 500 years old. Any of these two types of trees will do. If anyone can provide them, I am willing to pay 100 million for them." As soon as these words were spoken, their whole audience was in an uproar. Spending 100 million to buy a tree is really not a small amount of money. However, this money is obviously not so easy to earn. Not to mention the requirement of being struck by lightning, just the age of the peach and jujube trees is extremely rare. When these two conditions are combined, it becomes extremely difficult. Chapter 10. Do you think your favor is worth 90 million? However, despite the harsh conditions, because the person seeking help was Bai Yueguang, many people began to call and send messages to contact friends who run the timber business. Meng Lei stared blankly at Ji Tianwen, who was smiling beside her, her beautiful eyes full of disbelief. 20 minutes ago, Ji Tianwen threatened that he would use the dead tree that he bought for 5 million to create a value of more than 500 million. Now, it has actually become a reality. After reacting, Meng Lei moved closer to Ji Tianwen and asked in a low voice, "Tianwen, has President Yu discussed this with you in advance?" In her opinion, unless Ji Tianwen could predict the future, such a coincidence would be impossible. "I said no, do you believe it?" Ji Tian asked back. Meng Lei shook her head to express her disbelief. Ji Tianwen shrugged, indicating that it was up to him to believe it or not. At this time, Bai Yueguang suddenly raised his hand and said, "President Yu, this is such a coincidence." "Oh." Bai Yueguang's eyes lit up, and he asked expectantly, "Boss Miao, could it be that you have something I want?" "That's right." Bai Yueguang nodded heavily and said, to be honest, just over a month ago, the jujube tree in the yard of my ancestral home was struck by lightning. According to my family tree, the jujube tree was planted in the early years of the Hongji period of the Ming dynasty. It must have been 500 years now. Good. Good. This is really great. Yu Buiyuan said 3 good words in a row, looking very excited. Ji Qianwen and Meng Lei looked at each other and realized something at the same time. That is, Miao Zhigang was not aware of Miao Ruifeng's sale of trees. The rest of the people present all looked at Miao Zhigang with envy. To some extent, in Pingju City, Yu Buiyuan is the real thickest thigh. If we can hold on to it tightly, we will definitely be able to be on par with the G group, not to mention being far ahead of our rivals on the same level. What day is today? First, Meng Changming hooked up with the G group, and now Miao Zhigang hooked up with the president. Why don't I have such good luck? Damn it. Is this going to allow people to survive? Just as everyone was complaining in a low voice, Miao Ruifeng, whose face was pale, reacted from his daze. He immediately stood up, trotted to Meng Lei's side, and said quickly, "Help me. I want to buy back the tree I sold you 2 days ago." Meng Lei smiled apologetically and said, "Miao Xiao, I'm really sorry, the tree you sold me is no longer in my hands." "Who has it?" Miao Ruifeng asked hurriedly. Meng Lei didn't say a word, but just tilted her head in the direction of Ji Qianwen. Miao Ruifeng clenched his fists instantly, glanced at his father who was chatting happily with Yu Buiyuan, gritted his teeth, and forced a smile that was uglier than crying. "Master Ji, could you please be so kind as to let me buy the tree back? I'm willing to pay double the price." Ji Qianwen almost laughed out loud, scratched his ear, and asked, "How much is the double price?" 10 million. Miss Meng bought it for 5 million, I'm willing to buy it back for 10 million. Isn't this inappropriate? It's only been a few days and the price has doubled. If this gets out, won't people think I'm too cruel? Then you can return my tree to me for free. Miao Ruifeng's heart was full of rage, but he didn't dare to lose his temper. He said with a smile, "No. If anyone dares to say that young Master Ji has a bad heart, I will be the first to disagree." "Oh." Ji Qianwen responded. And then, nothing happened. Miao Ruifeng was so anxious that he almost went crazy. He said in a low voice, "Master Ji, shall I transfer the money to you now?" "No need. I don't do business with overly shrewd people. Master Ji, I sold it for 5 million and now I'm buying it back for 10 million. If that's considered smart, then there are no fools in the world. Aren't you smart?" Ji Qianwen chuckled and said, "President, you offered 100 million to buy the tree, but you said you wanted to buy it back for 10 million. If I sell it to you, wouldn't I lose 90 million? Master Ji, please be so kind as to give me a hand. I owe you a favor. Do you think your favor is worth 90 million? Miao Ruifeng was so angry that he reached out to grab Ji Qianwen by the collar and cursed, "Ji Qianwen, you are." But before he could grab Ji Qianwen's collar, Ji Qianwen kicked him in the stomach. Miao Ruifeng took a few steps back and fell directly to the ground. The commotion here quickly attracted everyone's attention. Miao Zhigang was furious and said, "Ji Qianwen, you injured people twice and totally ignored the rules of the Chamber of Commerce. Do you think the G group can really cover the sky with one hand?" A few minutes ago, he certainly wouldn't have dared to speak to Ji Qianwen in this attitude and tone. But, things are different now. He only needs to sell the tree to Yu Buiyuan, which is equivalent to holding onto Yu Buiyuan's thigh. In this situation, let alone Ji Qianyuan, even if he was facing Ji Wuyong at this moment, he would dare to challenge him. Ji Qianwen said expressionlessly, "Boss Miao, without investigation, you have no right to speak. My actions just now were legitimate defense. If you don't believe me, you can check the surveillance." The people sitting around Ji Qianwen immediately spoke up to agree. It was indeed Miao Ruifeng who started it first, intending to grab Master Ji's clothes, and Master Ji was just passively counterattacking. This is not Ji Xiao's fault. I even heard Miao Ruifeng cursing. Master Ji didn't move. Miao Ruifeng came over here on his own initiative. I think he was just trying to provoke me. Miao Zhigang was not surprised to hear that everyone was speaking in Ji Qianwen's favor. He turned his head to look at Yu Buiyuan and said respectfully, "President Yu, before you arrived, Ji Qianwen had already slapped my son, and now he has kicked him to the ground. As a member of the Chamber of Commerce, I beg you to seek justice for my son." Yu Buiyuan nodded slightly, turned his gaze to Ji Tianwen, and said indifferently, Ji Tianwen represents the G Group. According to the Chamber of Commerce regulations, the G Group should be removed from the Chamber of Commerce. Now let's vote by raising hands. Those who agree raise their hands. Bai Yueguang immediately raised his hand, feeling extremely excited. He never thought that a tree struck by lightning would give him the opportunity to cling to Bai Yueguang. This is truly the result of the ancestors' good deeds benefiting their descendants. The other directors looked at each other, hesitating and not daring to express their opinions. Bai Yueguang may not give face to G Group, but they cannot. After a while, Meng Changming stood up to smooth things over and said, Chairman Yu, my nephew Tianwen is still young after all, and there are reasons for his beating. I think it's better to clarify the matter first. The others nodded, agreeing with this statement. Bai Yueguang remained calm and asked Ji Tianwen, tell me why you hit someone. Chapter 11, the number 1 prodigal son in Pingju City. Ji Tianwen stood up with a calm expression and explained the reason for the slapping. After listening to this, everyone nodded. It is no secret in the circle that Bai Yueguang is pursuing Meng Lei. It is not surprising that upon learning that your sweetheart has become someone else's girlfriend, you go looking for her in anger. But, if you call Ji Tianwen trash, you are just asking for a beating. You must know that Ji Tianwen is attending today, representing Ji Yueguang and the G Group. Calling Ji Tianwen trash is equivalent to calling Ji Yueguang and the G Group trash. This slap was not unjust. Ji Tianwen, how do you explain beating my son just now? Bai Yueguang asked harshly. Ji Tianwen chuckled and said, this has to start from the time when your son was too shrewd and tried to use a few words to make me lose 90 million. As soon as these words were spoken, people around began to whisper. Bai Yueguang's body trembled and he almost fell to the ground. If my father knew that the tree in the ancestral home had been sold in advance, the consequences that would await him would be foreseeable. Ji Tianwen, stop talking nonsense here. Bai Yueguang said sternly. You lost 90 million in one sentence. You have the nerve to say such a lame excuse. How could my son go to you and make you lose 90 million after having an unpleasant experience with you? Is he a fool? Ji Tianwen shook his head and said, whether your son is a fool or not is none of my business, but I can tell you one thing very clearly. What's up? The deal between you and President Yu can no longer go on. Hearing this, everyone in the audience suddenly became agitated. The prince of the G Group is a little too arrogant. When one of the parties in the transaction was Bai Yueguang, he dared to interfere. Meng Changming's face changed, and he quickly stood up and said, my dear nephew Tianwen, let's put things in perspective. The conflict between you and Bai Yueguang and his son has nothing to do with Chairman Yu. After saying that, he apologized and explained to Bai Yueguang with a smile, fearing that Bai Yueguang would become dissatisfied with Ji Tianwen and even the G Group because of this. But while doing all this, Meng Changming couldn't help feeling a little unhappy. Ji Tianwen really has a childish temper. With such a personality, will he be able to take on the responsibility of the G Group after Ji Yueguang retires in the future? Just as I was thinking about it, I heard Ji Tianwen say, Uncle Meng, you misunderstood. What I said about the deal between President Miao and Chairman Yu not going through was not because I was being childish, but because of the facts. Meng Changming suddenly wanted to die. I was just wiping your butt, but just when I was about to wipe it clean, you pooped again, and it was a big one. Do you really have no sense at all? Bai Yueguang said on the spot, Ji Tianwen, what do you mean, do you think President Yu can't afford the money? I tell you, even if President Yu doesn't pay, I will give President Yu what he wants with both hands. It is well known that Bai Yueguang has no money. This can actually be seen from the fact that Bai Yueguang is sloppy and looks like a homeless person. But even though Bai Yueguang had no money, no one ever doubted whether he could afford the money. Not to mention anything else, but for those present, as long as Bai Yueguang spread the word, there would be many people willing to pay 100 million for him. There are many theories as to why Bai Yueguang has no money. One of the most popular sayings is, when Bai Yueguang became an apprentice, his master told him his fortune. Tell him that after doing this job, he cannot have any extra money. Otherwise, the money will inevitably be lost in various ways, perhaps being stolen, robbed, or in some other unexpected way. It means both financial loss and disaster. Bai Yueguang learned skills from his master for several years and then went down the mountain to venture into the world on his own. As expected, the master's words began to come true. As long as the money in his pocket is enough for one meal. Before dark, you will definitely spend money due to various emergencies. At first, Yu Buiyuan didn't believe it and tried hard to find a way to keep the money. He was indeed successful, but the price he paid was that he almost lost his life. Let us get back to the topic. Facing Miao Zhigang's question, Ji Qianwen shook his head and denied it. Boss Miao, I'm not worried that President Yu can't come up with the money, but you can't give President Yu what he wants. What a joke! This is such a joke. Miao Zhigang narrowed his eyes and asked sinisterly, Ji Qianwen, are you planning to hire a group of people to destroy what President Yu wants? Before Ji Qianwen could say anything, he felt Yu Buiyuan's gaze suddenly become fierce. For a moment, he felt as if he was carrying a mountain on his shoulders. He looks like an old homeless man, but at this moment he brings him such tremendous pressure. Ji Qianwen maintained his calm appearance, turned his gaze to the flustered Miao Ruifeng, and grinned. Miao Shao, do you want me to say it or do you want me to say it? Miao Ruifeng immediately broke out in a cold sweat on his forehead. His clenched fists were so tight that his body began to tremble, and his teeth were creaking. Miao Zhigang noticed something was wrong, walked quickly to his son and asked, what's going on? Miao Ruifeng hesitated several times, knowing that he could not escape this disaster, so he lowered his head and replied, I sold the tree in the ancestral house 2 days ago. Sold it? Sold it to whom? I sold it to Meng Lei for 5 million. Now the tree is in Ji Qianwen's hands. I wanted to buy it back for 10 million, but that bastard Ji Qianwen refused to sell it. You. Miao Zhigang's eyes went dark and he almost fainted on the spot. Veins bulged on his forehead, and he raised his hand and slapped Miao Ruifeng hard in the face. However, although the slap was clearly on his son's face, Miao Zhigang felt a burning pain on his face. Just now, he felt that his chance to rise to prominence was coming. But her happiness didn't last long, as her beautiful dream was shattered by her son. Miao Zhigang became angrier and angrier as he thought about it, and started punching and kicking Miao Ruifeng. People who are farther away find it baffling. But soon, Miao Ruifeng's remarks spread throughout the banquet hall. Everyone present suddenly understood. No wonder Ji Qianwen said that the deal between Miao Zhigang and Yu Buiyuan could not be reached. Miao Zhigang doesn't he have any goods at all, what can he use to trade with others? TSK, I used to think that young Master Ji was the biggest loser, but now it seems that the biggest loser is the young master of the Miao group. A tree worth 100 million yuan was sold for 5 million yuan, and they want to buy it back for 10 million yuan. You can't do this unless you have a cerebral thrombosis for 10 years. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. This is simply the number one loser in Pingju City. Chapter 12, No charge, just give it to you. Boy from the Ji family, is the tree in Miao Zhigang's ancestral home in your hands now? Yu Buiyuan asked. Ji Qianwen nodded and said, yes, there was an expert who made the same request as you before. I found out that there happened to be a tree that met the requirements in Mr. Miao's ancestral home, so I spent 5 million to buy it. The reason for saying this is to explain his motivation for buying the tree. After all, no normal person would be so idle as to spend 5 million to buy a dead tree. Yu Buiyuan's heart tightened, and he hurriedly asked, so, has the tree been taken away by the expert you mentioned? No. Ji Qianwen replied, the master just took a few branches and is currently keeping them at my house. As he spoke, he took out his cell phone, pulled out the photo and showed it to Yu Buiyuan. There are 3 photos in total, taken from different angles. After reading it, Yu Buiyuan felt a little relieved and asked, are you sure the tree is still the same as in the photo? Sure. Ji Qianwen half-jokingly said, fortunately, President Yu, you said it early, otherwise I would have thought it was in the way and planned to find a place to throw the tree away. Don't throw it away. Don't throw it away. Yu Buiyuan suddenly became excited and said, call your dad right now and ask him to take good care of the tree. Ji Qianwen immediately understood that the importance of this tree to Yu Buiyuan was greater than he had expected. This was naturally a good thing, and he did as he was told and called his father. After the call was connected, Yu Buiyuan spoke to Ji Wuyong personally. Yu Buiyuan first suggested that Ji Wuyong take good care of the tree, and then proposed to buy it for 100 million yuan. However, Ji Wuyong did not agree immediately, but said, President Yu, you can just talk to my son about this matter. He can fully represent me. Ji Qianwen, who was listening to the phone nearby, was stunned when he heard this. Dad didn't follow the script. However, he soon realized that his father wanted to use Yu Buiyuan's favor on him. Ji Tianwen didn't think too much about it. It didn't make much difference who received the favor. After hanging up the phone, Yu Buiyuan said bluntly, "Ji family boy, your father asked me to talk to you. Can you sell the tree to me for 100 million yuan?" The banquet hall fell silent instantly. Everyone thought that Ji Tianwen would agree readily. But Ji Tianwen did not speak immediately. Instead, he rubbed his chin, looking thoughtful. Meng Changming clenched and unclenched his fists, wishing he could speak up and agree on behalf of his future son-in-law. But he knew it was inappropriate to speak at this time, so he immediately winked at his daughter. Meng Lei naturally ignored it. In her eyes, Ji Tianwen was playing a double act with Yu Buiyuan. After a moment's silence, Ji Tianwen said, "President Yu, I bought the tree for 5 million. I can't live with myself if I sell it to you for 100 million. I don't want a cent and I'll just give it to you." The people present were not surprised by this statement. If it were them, they might be able to sell it at a lower price, but for the wealthy Ji group, 100 million is nothing more than a small amount. On the contrary, Yu Buiyuan's favor is the most valuable. "Boy from the Ji family, I won't be so polite with you. I'll accept the tree. You arrange for someone to deliver it to Yunwu Mountain. If you have any problems in the future, just come to the mountain to find me," Yu Buiyuan said. Ji Tianwen agreed with a smile and said, "President Yu, I will arrange for someone to go up the mountain overnight." Yu Buiyuan nodded in satisfaction, sat down in the main seat, adjusted the microphone, and said, "Sorry. I have delayed a lot of your time. Now I declare that the 265th meeting of the Pingju Chamber of Commerce has officially begun." Everyone applauded and took out pens and papers to start taking notes. After the half-hour meeting, Ji Tianwen was surrounded on the spot. "Master Ji, facing 100 million in front of you, you are completely unmoved and firmly stick to your conscience. I admire you so much. This is the vision. This is foresight. Isn't there a saying that the bigger your heart is, the bigger the world is? Young Master Ji, you have a broad mind and will achieve great things in the future. I've heard of Master Ji's great name before, but I've never had the chance to meet him. Today, I got to see Master Ji's demeanor. It's true that hearing about him is not as good as meeting him, and meeting him is even better than hearing about him." Everyone praised and flattered him, trying hard to build a relationship with Ji Tianwen. Another person who received similar treatment to Ji Tianwen was Meng Changming. Although Ji Tianwen and Meng Lei are just boyfriend and girlfriend now. However, considering the special situation that Meng Lei is the only heir to the Meng group, there is a high possibility that Ji Tianwen and Meng Lei will get married. To round it off, to curry favor with Meng Changming is to curry favor with Ji Tianwen, which is to curry favor with the Ji group. This scene fell into the eyes of Xie Jinder and Xie Shuyun, father and daughter, making them both a little annoyed. They felt that the preferential treatment that should have belonged to them was snatched away by Meng Changming and Meng Lei, father and daughter. "Xie Shuyun, look at what you have done." Xie Jinder said angrily, "This is what you want, isn't it?" A flash of anger flashed across Xie Shuyun's eyes, and she said, "I have paid enough for the group over the years. If it weren't for me, the Xie group would have been finished 5 years ago. You." Xie Jinder said angrily, "I gave birth to you and raised you for so many years, how dare you talk to me like this?" Xie Shuyun's momentum suddenly weakened a lot, and she frowned and said, "I'm just stating the facts. Given the current situation of the group, we can't delay any longer." Xie Jinder snorted coldly, "Tonight, no matter what method you come up with, you must coax Ji Tianwen into submission." The Xie group was originally counting on the Ji group to rescue them, and now Ji Tianwen asked Yu Buiyuan to do him a big favor, which was equivalent to pulling Yu Buiyuan onto the big ship of the Ji group. Looking at Meng Changming, who was chatting and laughing with everyone, Xie Jinder couldn't help but become even more impatient, and added, "Even if there is some sacrifice and cost, it is necessary." Xie Shuyun was stunned for a moment, and then she understood what her father meant by sacrifice and price. She said in disbelief, "Dad, you mean to let me betray my body to Ji Tianwen, right? Don't say such harsh words. What do you mean by selling your body?" Xie Jinder frowned and said unhappily, "Anyway, you and Ji Tianwen have been together for 5 years. Everything that should have happened has already happened. Oh. You are really the same as what outsiders said, you just sit and wait to get paid." Xie Shuyun showed a sarcastic smile, but her eyes looked a little sad. She and Ji Tianwen have been together for 5 years, let alone having sex. The most intimate thing the two had ever done was holding hands and hugging in public, and they had never even kissed. Even holding hands and hugging were obtained at a heavy price by Ji Tianwen. Chapter 13. Xie Shuyun stops the car. 3 years ago, Xie Shuyun was kidnapped. Ji Tianwen offered to serve as a hostage in exchange for Xie Shuyun's safety. The kidnappers would naturally not refuse. After all, the value of the Xie group's daughter could not compare to that of the Ji group's prince. Later, when Ji Tianwen was rescued, he was already bruised and battered. Xie Shuyun was moved and promised Ji Tianwen that he could hold her hand in public in the future and simply hug her when necessary. When thinking about this, Xie Shuyun's mind emerged Ji Tianwen with a bloody head and bruised face, and the heartfelt smile he showed when he heard her promise. Then, I felt an inexplicable pain in my heart. From now on, he probably won't smile so happily for her anymore, right? Xie Shuyun shook her head and cleared this inexplicable thought from her mind. She likes Brother Zimo, so whether Ji Tianwen can laugh or not has nothing to do with her. However, right now I have to think of a way to get back to Ji Tianwen. Otherwise, the bright future between her and Brother Zimo would be shattered. After the dinner, everyone left in an orderly manner. Ji Tianwen and Meng Lei walked out of the banquet hall accompanied by a large group of people. No need to see us off, let's all go back. Ji Tianwen waved his hand, turned and left. To him, this meal meant little. But for most people, this occasion is a rare opportunity to build connections and make good friends. The huge group of people didn't stop until they escorted Ji Tianwen to the car. The driver opened the door. Ji Tianwen and Meng Lei entered the back seat of the business car one after another. Tianwen, you don't seem to like others praising you. Meng Lei asked curiously. Ji Tianwen smiled and replied, if you hear it too much, you will become numb. He had been in the Chamber of Commerce for 2 hours and had listened to at least an hour of flattery and sycophancy. As far as my inner feelings are concerned, I definitely can't say I feel disgusted. After all, no one doesn't like to hear nice words. But, don't be too proud. Ji Tianwen, who had fallen into the abyss, naturally understood how unreliable the words spoken from people's mouths were. Meng Lei chatted for a while, then got to the point. Next, I plan to create a high-end accessories brand. Are you interested in investing in it? Want to buy shares? Ji Tianwen showed great interest and asked, how much money do you need to buy your shares? Why does this sound so strange? Meng Lei rolled up a strand of her long hair, twisted it around her index finger, and replied. The initial investment will be 100 million. I will contribute 60 million, accounting for 60% of the shares, and you will contribute 40 million, accounting for 40% of the shares. You don't have to participate in the management, and I will do everything. Just wait for the money to be divided at the end of the year. With an initial investment of 100 million, how much additional investment will be needed later? Ji Qian asked casually. As far as he could remember, he really didn't remember Meng Lei working in the jewelry industry. The most likely possibility is that they have tried to enter the market, but ultimately failed to create much waves and ended up in failure. Meng Lei replied, subsequent investment must be determined based on actual conditions. Then forget it. Ji Tianwen said, I don't have much spare money, I can't afford to squander it. Meng Lei frowned, obviously dissatisfied with this statement. After trying several ways of persuasion to no avail, she puffed up her cheeks and said in a strange tone, I really envy Xie Shuyun. We both have the title of girlfriend, but Xie Shuyun can get hundreds of millions of investment just by talking. But I'm different. My lips are almost worn out, but I can't even get 40 million investment. Ji Tianwen was surprised and said, Lei, this is not something a strong woman like you would say. Meng Lei didn't say anything, but just looked at him resentfully. Ji Tianwen laughed and said, you said that Xie Shuyun could attract hundreds of millions of dollars in investment just by talking. This statement is not entirely accurate. Xie Shuyun did talk, but she didn't talk. She did things. Do things. Meng Lei couldn't understand the meaning of these two words for a moment. What else can the mouth do besides eating and talking? Ji Tianwen gave an explanation, just kneel in front of me and stammer. Meng Lei gradually understood, and a layer of pink covered her pretty cheeks. Seeing this, Ji Tianwen asked with a smile, now that I've said this, do you feel more balanced? Meng Lei rolled her eyes wildly and said, if I didn't know Xie Shuyun well enough, I might really believe what you said. At this moment, the speed of the car slowly decreased. The ambient lights on the doors and roof also flashed rapidly. This means that the driver in the front seat pressed the Request Talk button. In fact, the driver can talk directly to the passengers in the back seat using the intercom. However, unless necessary, we generally do not speak directly. Ji Tianwen pressed the button at hand and lowered the large screen in front of him. Then I heard the driver say, "Master, someone is stopping the car ahead." Ji Tianwen had already seen the person who stopped the car in front. It was Xie Shuyun. After the meeting and before the banquet, Xie Jinder and his daughter Xie Shuyun followed the example of Bai Yueguang and his son Bai Yuefeng and left the Chamber of Commerce early. "No need to stop, just go around," Ji Tianwen said. The driver nodded and replied, "Okay." After saying that, he pointed the direction. However, Xie Shuyun moved in the direction of the front of the car and blocked the business car again. Helplessly, the driver had to step on the brakes. "Go ahead. Maybe Xie Shuyun wants to ask you for help." Meng Lei's tone was teasing. She deliberately emphasized the word help, and there was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Ji Tianwen didn't respond and pressed the door opening button. The automatic door opened and he stepped out of the car. As a result, he stumbled and almost fell to the ground. Seeing this, Xie Shuyun was about to get down to business, but thinking about what she would have to ask of this person she hated, she still spoke with concern, "Are you okay?" "It's okay, I just finished something and my legs feel a little weak." Ji Tianwen explained and pulled up his trousers, giving people the feeling that he had just put on his trousers. Inside the car, Meng Lei's mouth twitched twice, and she was speechless. This young Master Ji, who claimed to be good a few days ago, actually has an extremely strong desire for revenge. In Meng Lei's opinion, Ji Tianwen's behavior was obviously a counterattack against her for the teasing she had made to him just before he got off the car. After a brief moment of stunned silence, Xie Shuyun understood Ji Tianwen's words and the meaning of his actions. Thinking of what Ji Tianwen and Meng Lei did in the car, she unconsciously clenched her fists, a flame of anger ignited in her heart. She looked at the open door of the business car and deliberately said loudly, "I thought that the eldest daughter of the Meng group was so pure and innocent, but it seems that after a few years of wandering abroad, she has become a bit more romantic." Chapter 14. There are 4 things I don't eat. How could Meng Lei tolerate Xie Shuyun's slander and abuse? She immediately opened the car door and got out from the other side. She walked to Ji Tianwen, put her arm around his, and without looking at Xie Shuyun, asked, "Tianwen, I just heard a dog barking, did you hear it?" "Yes." "Then let's get in the car quickly." Barking dogs are usually wild dogs that no one feeds. It would be bad if they get bitten. You have a point. The two of them sang in unison and turned around to get in the car. Xie Shuyun couldn't stand it anymore and said angrily, "Meng Lei, who are you calling a dog?" "I curse the dog that blocks the road, the dog that eats excrement and spews feces from its mouth," Meng Lei has said bluntly. "You are the dog." Xie Shuyun cursed back, then turned her gaze to Ji Tianwen and said indignantly, "Meng Lei just returned to China for a few days, and she played with you in the car. Aren't you afraid of catching a disease? There are so many black men abroad, and someone like Meng Lei must have been rotten a long time ago. Xie Shuyun, 3 times is the limit." Ji Tianwen said in a cold tone, "If you make up another story about my Lei, don't blame me for being rude." Xie Shuyun couldn't believe it and said, "Ji Tianwen, we have been together for 5 years, can't it be better than the few days you and Meng Lei have been together?" Ji Tianwen felt amused and asked, "How dare you ask that? We've been together for 5 years, but when your true love returned to China, didn't you run over and propose to her?" "You?" Xie Shuyun was speechless and explained with a stiff upper lip, "I told you, we were rehearsing a play that day. Stop talking nonsense. What exactly do you want to do by stopping my car?" Ji Tian asked impatiently. Xie Shuyun calmed down and said pleadingly, "Let's talk in my car. I'm busy." Ji Tianwen refused. "I don't want to be photographed and then spread rumors that I'm still having an affair with you." Xie Shuyun had anticipated this outcome, and immediately changed her tactics, pretending to be about to cry, and choked up as she said, "Are you really so heartless?" Ji Tianwen was stunned. From the time of his death in his previous life, he had never seen Xie Shuyun show this attitude in front of him. To be honest, it is quite pleasing to the eye. Don't just thunder without rain. Cleave a few drops of crocodile tears to make it seem more real. Meng Lei curled her lips in an undisguised mockery. Ji Tianwen said expressionlessly, Xie Shuyun, I'll give you 2 more minutes. If you have something to say, please speak up. If not, please leave. Hearing this, Xie Shuyun no longer cared about pretending to be nice. She wiped away the non-existent tears from the corners of her eyes, took a deep breath and said, Ji Tianwen, Xie Group is the result of my father's hard work for half his life. Currently, only you can save Xie Group. If you help Xie Group again, I will lend you 300 million yuan, is that okay? No. Ji Tianwen said without thinking. I can write you an IOU. Writing an IOU is useless. I won't lend you a cent. Xie Shuyun was feeling extremely aggrieved. With Meng Lei present, she had no way of using the beauty trap and could only lower her posture as much as possible. But Ji Tianwen remained unmoved, which made her feel deeply powerless and frustrated. Ji Tianwen, how could things change so suddenly? Before this, Xie Shuyun thought that she had enough understanding of Ji Tianwen. But now, she felt as if she had never really understood this man. Miss Xie, I can lend you the money. Meng Lei said with a smile. No need. Xie Shuyun refused decisively and turned away. She could easily guess that Meng Lei was planning to play a trick on her, rather than really wanting to lend her money. If you answer, you will only be humiliated. After sending Meng Lei home first, Ji Tianwen went to his parents' residence. The Seaview Villa located on the Golden Beach is particularly eye-catching at night. Just looking at it from a distance, it gives people a feeling of luxury. In addition to its own swimming pool, the villa also has many other facilities such as a wine cellar, restaurant, and cinema. Ji Tianwen also lived here before he had a falling out with his father. After getting off the car, calmed down a little. Ji Tianwen stepped into the courtyard of the villa and walked about 10 meters along the cobblestone road. I saw a middle-aged man sitting by the swimming pool, fishing with a fishing rod in his hand. The man has angular facial features and his carefully trimmed beard adds a bit of mature charm to him, making him a handsome uncle indeed. For a certain type of girl, such a handsome uncle has a fatal attraction. Dad, when was our swimming pool turned into a fishing ground? Ji Qian asked in greeting. Ji Wuyong said without even turning his head, You never come home, I don't know when you changed it. Ji Tianwen touched his nose, smiled awkwardly and said, Dad, I was confused before. I apologize to you. As soon as these words came out, the fishing rod in Ji Wuyong's hand began to shake noticeably. When he regained his composure, he still did not respond, but changed the subject. Let's talk about what happened at the Pingju Chamber of Commerce tonight. Okay. Ji Tianwen nodded in agreement and gave a brief account of the meeting process and what happened. Ji Wuyong listened very carefully, even though he already knew what his son said in advance. But hearing it from someone else and hearing it from my son himself are two completely different feelings. After listening patiently, Ji Wuyong asked slowly, How are you and Meng Lei getting along? Good. Since it's okay, then don't waste time. Your mother is anxious to have a grandson and keeps nagging me every day. If you hurry up, I can have some peace and quiet. As they were talking, Bai Yueguang came over carrying a teapot. When he saw his son was there, his eyes immediately became nervous and his pace unconsciously quickened. This was an instinctive reaction. After all, in the past, whenever the father and son met, they would only talk for 3 sentences before they would start arguing until their faces turned red. Son, when did you come back? Bai Yueguang asked. Mom, I just came back. Ji Qian asked in reply. Bai Yueguang observed and saw that the relationship between the father and son was quite harmonious. She breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile. Son, before you came back, your dad kept praising you, saying that you finally got it. You gave that tree to Yu Buiyuan and made him owe you a favor. This deal was worth it. I never said that. Ji Wuyong denied it flatly. Bai Yueguang ignored him and said to herself, Son, don't leave tonight. Ask your dad to catch 2 fish and bring them to the kitchen to cook. You two can have a couple of drinks. Ji Wuyong lived up to expectations and soon caught 2 big fish. Before handing it to Bai Yueguang, he said, Tell the kitchen to be more careful about the cooking method. There are 4 things I don't eat. If you don't want to eat, get out. Bai Yueguang said unhappily, It's mainly for my son, it doesn't matter if you eat it or not. Chapter 15, Declare War on the Meng Group. Half a month passed in a flash. During this half month, Ji Tianwen worked diligently and punched in for work, dealing with the mess left over from his previous cooperation with the Xie group. Then, every now and then, I would meet with Meng Lei for afternoon tea. The days are busy and fulfilling. That morning, Ji Tianwen walked into the office as usual. As soon as I sat down, the phone in my pocket started ringing. The call was from Meng Lei, and Ji Tianwen also knew why the other party called. When the call was connected, Meng Lei said, "Tianwen, guess why I'm calling you so early?" Just by listening to the tone and content of the conversation, Ji Tianwen was sure that Meng Lei's parents were nearby. Ji Tianwen replied calmly, "For the opening ceremony." Meng Lei said in a surprised tone, "It seems that you still take my words to heart. Come here earlier. You are still needed to cut the ribbon." "Okay." Ji Tianwen responded and then hung up the phone. 10:30 in the morning. Ji Tianwen appeared in front of Pingju City Trade Plaza. This is a prime location where every inch of land is worth a lot of money. The rent of any store is 10 times or even dozens of times higher than that of other shopping malls. From the signs of luxury brands, it can be seen that the consumer groups catered to here are very precise. If you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars in assets, you definitely won't hang out in a place like this. Meng Lei's store is located between two jewelry stores. The person guarding outside the door saw Ji Tianwen and immediately ran into the store. When Ji Tianwen approached the front of the store, he saw a middle-aged woman walking out of the store quickly. The woman looked to be around 40 years old, with a well-maintained figure and skin, and the way she dressed exuded an air of wealth. Judging from her features, she looks very similar to Meng Lei. She is none other than Meng Lei's mother, Chang Jingqi. "Tianwen, you're here so early." Chang Jingqi smiled and greeted him from a distance. "Aunt Chang, this is the first time Lei has opened a store after returning to China. She has high hopes for the brand she founded, so it is only right that I come earlier." Ji Tianwen asked politely. Chang Jingqi was very satisfied with this statement, and smiled from ear to ear. "Tianwen, you are really good at talking. Auntie will take you inside to have a look." The decoration inside was designed by our Xiale herself. Under the guidance of Chang Jingqi, Ji Tianwen entered the store. The store is not small, about 500 to 600 square meters. The decoration style is also European, especially the chandelier in the middle, which gives people a bright feeling. The chandelier is made of what looks like crystal, with various shapes pieced together. In addition to common plane graphics, three-dimensional graphics and multi-dimensional graphics are also included. However, the overall look does not make people feel discordant and messy. Instead, it makes people feel very artistic and especially high-end and atmospheric. In addition, the shapes of the tables and chairs in the rest area are also different from those commonly seen in daily life. "Tianwen, Xiale has really put a lot of effort into this store," Chang Jingqi said with emotion. During the renovation, she was supervising the work in the store. The renovation workers worked in 2 shifts, and she only slept for 3 or 4 hours a day. When she was really sleepy, she went upstairs to sleep for a while. Ji Tianwen nodded slowly. In fact, from the overall to the details, it was not difficult to see that Meng Lei had indeed put a lot of thought into this store. Just as I was thinking about it, I heard Chang Jingqi ask, "Tianwen, do you think Xiaolei's store can be run well?" "I believe Lei can do it well," Ji Tianwen replied casually. A moment later, Meng Lei, dressed in professional attire, came down from upstairs. Chang Jingqi immediately called her daughter over and left the time to the 2 young people. Perhaps because the store is about to open, Meng Lei seems to be in a good mood. She takes Ji Tianwen and introduces the various jewelry she designed. From necklaces to earrings, from rings to bracelets, he can talk about each one for a long time. Ji Tianwen listened to Meng Lei's story, and then looked at the pieces of jewelry with their ordinary designs, and finally understood why Meng Lei was unsuccessful in this field. "Tianwen, what do you think?" Meng Lei asked with a hint of pride. "Do you regret not investing?" Ji Tianwen pondered and said, "Do you want to hear the truth or a lie?" "Of course it's true. No regrets." Meng Lei nodded slowly and said, "It's normal not to regret it now. You will regret it in the future." "I'll wait and see." Ji Tianwen shrugged, looking very relaxed. At this time, someone came over to remind us that the opening ceremony was about to begin. Meng Lei raised her wrist to check the time, said hello to Ji Tianwen, and walked out the door. At exactly 11 o'clock, Meng Lei appeared on the stage set up outside the store. However, before anyone could speak, a group of people were seen holding wreaths and placing them in front of the store. The whole audience was in an uproar. Fuck! Who is so bold? Sending wreaths for a grand opening, how much hatred is this? Interesting, it's not a wasted trip today to catch such a big event. In the VIP seats, Ji Tianwen looked at the chaotic scene and couldn't help but be curious, who ordered the wreath to be sent. On the stage, Meng Lei's pretty face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Opening a jewelry store has been her dream since childhood. This is also the reason why she was able to set up the store so quickly. Those complicated designs already existed in her mind, and she only needed to construct them according to the drawings. But what she didn't expect was that just when she was about to set sail with her dreams as oars, such a big setback occurred. Miao Group. In the spacious office, a middle-aged man in his 30s was smoking a cigar, putting his legs on the desk, puffing out smoke, looking very contented. The man's name is Miao Ruexiang, and he is Miao Ruifeng's elder brother. On the sofa, Miao Ruifeng frowned and said, "Brother, aren't we being too ruthless? Sending wreaths on the opening day, isn't that the same as declaring war on the Meng Group?" "You're right, we are going to declare war," Miao Ruexiang said calmly. If Pingju City is regarded as a big cake, then for so many years, each family has been guarding their own share. Although they are jealous of each other, they also abide by the rules and no one steals from anyone else. But now, the Meng Group is not following the rules and is reaching out to us, trying to take the cake in front of us. Can we let them take it away? What about Ji Tianwen? Miao Ruifeng said worriedly. Ji Tianwen is Meng Lei's boyfriend. If he stands up for Meng Lei, we will be in trouble. Miao Ruexiang showed a confident smile and said, "Don't worry, I'm prepared." Chapter 16. What do you want me to do in exchange for your help? In this era dominated by self-media, it often no longer takes a long process for a piece of news to ferment and explode. Just half an hour later, the news that the eldest daughter of Meng Group received wreaths for the opening of her new store quickly became a hot topic. In a deserted store, Meng Lei sat on a chair shaped like a harp, expressionless and silent. She looks calm, but everyone knows that beneath her calm exterior lies a volcano that could erupt at any time. After a while, Song Yarbing, a beautiful secretary with fair skin and long legs, walked up to Ji Tianwen and broke the silence, saying, "Boss Ji, we have already checked it out." "Who is it?" Meng Lei looked over with a sharp gaze. Song Yarbing moved in the direction of Ji Tianwen and replied, "It was Miao Ruexiang from the Miao Group who ordered those people to send the wreath." Miao Ruexiang. Meng Lei clenched her fists, fire burning in her eyes. Ji Tianwen nodded in understanding and was not surprised by the result. Before he got accurate information, he had already identified the Xia Group and the Miao Group as his suspects. Compared with the two, the Miao Group is more suspicious. The reason is very simple. Although Xia Shuyun and Meng Lei have some personal grudges, at this critical juncture, the Xia Group has difficulty even protecting itself. It has no energy and no reason to provoke the Meng Group. But the Miao Group is different, putting aside the previous feud with the Chamber of Commerce. Meng Lei opened a jewelry store, which created a direct conflict of interest with the Miao Group. In recent years, Miao Group has always been the leader in the women's accessories market. As the only heir to the Meng Group, Meng Lei's sudden entry into this field would naturally be understood as the Meng Group declaring war on the Miao Group. It would be abnormal if the Miao Group remained indifferent. After a long while, Meng Lei calmed down her emotions, looked at Ji Qian who was sitting opposite her, and asked, "Don't you want to say something?" Ji Tianwen tapped the table with his fingers and said, "The Miao Group's methods are indeed a bit despicable, and their purpose is very clear, which is to attack you as a competitor. What else? I despise the despicable means of the Miao Group and strongly condemn this malicious competition." Ji Tianwen was of course clear that Meng Lei wanted to drag him down. But, rather than taking part in the show himself, he actually prefers to watch it. After all, there is nothing to gain from getting into a fight. Meng Lei took a deep breath and continued, "No matter what, I am now your girlfriend in name only. Are you just going to watch the Miao Group bully me like this? Then I'll close my eyes and not look." Ji Tianwen leaned back and closed his eyes. If you want to play the emotional card, you must at least have emotions. Moreover, the woman in front of him was obviously a strong woman, but she was obsessed with thinking about how to get him for free. Ji Tianwen, who had suffered a big setback with Xia Shuyun, naturally would not let Meng Lei taste the sweetness of getting something for free. At this moment, Song Yabing, who had just finished the call, returned to Ji Tianwen and reported. Boss Ji, the chairman's secretary just called and said that Bai Yueguang, the chairman of Miao Group, had just met with the chairman and mentioned sending a wreath. What did you say? Ji Qian asked with his eyes closed. Song Yabing replied, Bai Yueguang said that sending a wreath was an impulsive and radical act of his eldest son, and he had no intention of targeting you, President Ji. I hope we don't misunderstand. Meng Lei's expression became subtle when she heard this. Bai Yueguang went to see Ji Wuyong in person and explained that sending the wreath was not directed at Ji Tianwen, but because he was afraid of the Ji group. Ji Wuyong asked his secretary to pass this news to Ji Tianwen, so that Ji Tianwen would not give up easily. In other words, if you want to get rid of Ji Tianwen and the Ji group, it will not work without certain benefits. After figuring this out, Meng Lei asked Song Yabing to step aside, and then said frankly, Mr. Ji, I will give you 40% of the shares of Yuan Meng on the condition that you help me fight back against Miao Ruixiang. Judging from the way she addressed him, Meng Lei was obviously very dissatisfied. But Ji Tianwen naturally didn't care. Favorability was something that couldn't be eaten, so it didn't matter whether he had it or not. He opened his eyes and shook his head, saying, to fight back against Miao Ruixiang, we will inevitably face off against the Miao group. As for the 40% of dry shares you mentioned, it's a bit like a blank check. The benefits of dry stocks are obvious. You don't have to bear any risks or invest any money. You can just sit back and enjoy the dividends. But the prerequisite is that there is money to be divided. If it's difficult to even make a profit, the shares are worthless. Besides, Ji Tianwen remembered clearly that the brand Yuan Meng, founded by Meng Lei, did not make any waves at all. Therefore, 40% of the shares were not attractive to Ji Tianwen at all. If I add the words I and fart between the words Gangu, maybe he would be a little interested. Meng Lei knew that Ji Tianwen didn't believe she could make a profit, so she asked impatiently, then tell me, what do you want me to do in exchange for your help? Ji Tianwen was waiting for this sentence, but he did not immediately propose conditions. Instead, he pretended to think for a while and said in an embarrassed tone, at this moment, I really can't think of anything you can do to help me. How about this? I heard that the Meng Group plans to cooperate with Julong Technology to research VR glasses. I think this product is interesting. If you can get the Ji Group to join, I will help you deal with the Miao Group. In the previous life, under the leadership of Meng Lei, the Meng Group gambled all its assets and eventually overtook others with the product of VR glasses. It made rapid progress in a short period of time and eventually became on par with the Ji Group. In his previous life, Ji Tianwen fell into the hands of two women, Xia Shuyun and Meng Lei. Xia Shuyun doesn't have to worry too much, but Meng Lei still has to be on guard. Ji Tianwen wanted to eliminate all the hidden dangers so that he could feel at ease. I am not the head of Meng Group yet. I need to discuss it with my father. Meng Lei said. Okay. Ji Tianwen nodded. Meng Lei didn't waste any time and immediately called her father. When he said that Ji Group was interested in joining the product development of the virtual reality project, Meng Changming did not give an immediate answer, but said he would consider it. Although the entry of Ji Group can alleviate the financial pressure to a great extent, a piece of the cake will inevitably be divided out, and he needs to weigh the pros and cons repeatedly. 2 hours later. After having lunch with Meng Lei, Ji Tianwen waited for a reply from Meng Changming, who agreed to Ji Group's request to join. While Ji Tianwen was delighted, he also readily fulfilled the conditions he had promised to Meng Lei. He posted a microblog, I have received the wreath. I will give you a coffin in return and send it back with the wreath. Hurry up and choose a good grave for yourself. At Miao Group. Chapter 17, The Old Problem Comes Back. One stone can cause 1,000 ripples. After Ji Tianwen's Weibo post was published, he not only quickly became a hot topic, but also set off the entire Pingju business community. Previously, people had made various speculations about how Ji Tianwen would react. But no one ever thought that Ji Tianwen had just reached this level. If the Miao Group sent a wreath to his girlfriend, he would send a coffin to the Miao Group and ask the Miao Group to quickly select a cemetery. Is Ji Tianwen crazy? It is true that the Ji Group is wealthy and powerful, but the Miao Group is no pushover either. From the literal meaning, it seems that young Master Ji is going to bring down the Miao Group, but I really can't figure out how young Master Ji will bring down the Miao Group. Inside the restaurant, Ji Tianwen stood up and said, Lei, I have to go back to the company and ask my dad for some money. Meng Lei nodded and said, well, you don't have to send me off. I can go home by myself. Ji Tianwen responded and turned to leave. G Group. In the office area, many female white-collar workers gathered together and whispered. You all saw the Weibo post that President Ji sent, right? Of course I saw it. The number of likes has exceeded 100,000. I'm not talking about likes, I'm talking about the content. President Ji is so domineering. Mr. Ji is really good to his girlfriend. I have decided that Mr. Ji will be my standard for choosing a partner from now on. Then you probably won't be able to get married for the rest of your life. In the entire Pingju city, you can't find anyone richer than Mr. Ji. Don't talk about money. I mean, if there is a man who is willing to do this for me, I will marry him right then and there. Even if that man is old, ugly and poor. Mr. Ji is here, stop talking. Upon hearing this, everyone quickly kicked off, slid onto their office chairs, and returned to their workstations. Then, they stood up and said in unison, Hello, President Ji. Ji Tianwen raised his hand as a greeting, then went straight to the chairman's office. I knocked on the door and heard a voice from inside. Ji Tianwen turned the doorknob and walked into the office. Behind the large desk, Ji Yueguang looked up at his son and frowned. Your old problem has come back again, right? Ji Tianwen was stunned for a moment, then he realized that his father's so-called old problem was that he was too nice to his girlfriend. He shook his head and denied it. Dad, I'm not a fool. I definitely won't do a business that loses money. If you want to take over the piece of cake from Miao Group after it collapses, I can tell you very clearly that it can be done, but you can't do it that way. I understand. If the G Group really wants to make all the money, the final result will be that everyone will unite and overturn the table, and no one will be willing to play with us anymore. Upon hearing this, Ji Yueguang frowned even more tightly and asked, So what do you mean by not doing a business that loses money? Meng Group is cooperating with Julong Technology to develop a pair of VR glasses. This virtual reality product is very promising. By helping Meng Lei deal with Miao Group, I have gained an opportunity to join the cooperation. This project will definitely make money. Dad, believe me. Ji Tianwen said with a serious expression. Ji Yueguang did not express his opinion immediately, but said, I will consider the project you mentioned. I only want to ask you one thing. How much money will it cost to bring down the Miao Group? Have you calculated it? Ji Tianwen nodded and replied, About 3 billion, about right. 3 billion, you said it so easily. Ji Yueguang snorted coldly and asked, How much money do you need to invest in the Meng Group and Julong Technology projects? Ji Tianwen pondered and said, I'm not sure about the details. Meng Changming will contact you later. I estimate that the total investment of the three companies combined will exceed 10 billion. The three companies jointly invested 10 billion yuan, and spent more than 3 billion yuan, which is more than 6 billion yuan. Do you know what this means? Ji Yueguang said expressionlessly. Ji Tianwen thought for a moment and tentatively replied, Does it mean that in your heart, my failure to make money has reached a new level? No. Ji Yueguang denied, It means you can pack up your things, go home and eat and wait for death. He thought he was bold enough. But now it seems that the son is braver than his father. Less than a month after cutting ties with the Xia Group, they were already planning to spend more than 6 billion yuan. This made Ji Yueguang's idea of training his son to be his heir waver. At this rate of spending, the G Group will go bankrupt and liquidate within a year. In this case, it would be more troublesome to find a professional manager to manage the group. Ji Tianwen said with an unprecedented serious expression, Dad, please give me one chance, just this once. If my prediction is wrong, I will never get involved in business again. Go home and live a peaceful life. Ji Yueguang looked at Ji Tianwen and saw the determination in his son's eyes. He was silent for a long time, then asked, How long will it take for the project between Meng Group and Julong Technology to generate revenue? There will be a major breakthrough by the end of this year, and we will start making money by the third quarter of next year at the latest. Ji Tianwen said confidently, Although the cycle is a bit long, in the long run, it will definitely be of great benefit to the G Group. Ji Yueguang looked at his son deeply, opened the drawer of his desk, took out a coin, and said, I'll flip the coin. If the side facing up is a word, I agree with you. If it's a flower, then you can forget about it. Isn't it a bit hasty to decide whether to spend more than 6 billion yuan by flipping a coin? Ji Tianwen was speechless for a while, but nodded and agreed, okay. Ji Yueguang didn't waste any words. He placed the coin vertically on the table and then reached out and flicked it on the side. The coin spun for a while and finally fell on the table. The side facing up was a flower. It's a flower, you don't have to worry about anything, Ji Yueguang said. Ji Qian asked suspiciously, you didn't cheat? Ji Yueguang nodded heavily, this is God's will. Really? I don't believe it. The result has already appeared. Whether you believe it or not, it cannot change the facts. It can be changed. Oh? How do you want to change it? Smash the table so the coins fall to the floor. What if it falls on the floor, and the flower still faces upwards? The floor was smashed, allowing the coins to fall to the next level. Ji Yueguang slowly stood up and said with a smile, I am satisfied with what you said. I believe you for once. I knew you must have cheated. Ji Tianwen muttered softly. Chapter 18, The authorities are confused. Inside the Yuanmeng store. Meng Lei was alone, sitting on a chair. On the table in front of me were red wine and wine glasses. She drank by herself, with no expression on her pretty face. After drinking the last sip of red wine in the glass, she took out her mobile phone, opened Weibo, and went to Ji Tianwen's homepage. The Weibo post that Ji Tianwen posted in the afternoon has, as of now, received over 100,000 reposts, comments, and likes. Seeing those domineering remarks, a hint of tenderness appeared in her eyes. It seems that it feels really good to be protected by others. When I clicked on the comments, I saw their highly liked ones, all of which were full of overwhelming support and praise. As expected of the Prince of G Group, he is so angry for his beloved. He is a real man. I got married last year and bought a diamond ring from the Miao Group store, but later I found out that the product was not what I ordered and the weight was seriously inflated. The lawsuit has not yet come to a conclusion. I support Ji Xiao with my real name and want to bring down the black-hearted capitalist Miao Group. Sisters, at your boyfriends and see what true boyfriend power max is. I want to find a boyfriend like Ji Xiao, waiting online. I really envy the eldest daughter of the Meng Group. She is so favored before she gets married. If she gets married, won't she be pampered to the sky? Meng Lei flipped through the comments, the corners of her mouth unconsciously raised into a graceful arc. Then, she opened WeChat and entered the chat group in the circle. In the past few years when she was abroad, she learned about the major and minor events happening in Pingju City through the groups in her circle. As expected, the hot topic in the group was Ji Tianwen's declaration of war on the Miao Group. I think the Miao Group was stunned by Ji Xiao's move. It was like playing landlord. The Miao Group just sent out Zhang San, and Ji Xiao directly sent out the King Bomb. This analogy is inappropriate. Sending a wreath is not as simple as a mistress. It is too evil. At Meng Lei, Miss Meng, we won't dare to mess with you anymore. Your Master Ji is too powerful. At Meng Lei, Sister Lei, can you teach me the secret of controlling your husband? Let's talk business. Do you think young Master Ji can defeat the Miao Group? It's hard to say. The Ji Group is very strong, but it is not on the same track as the Miao Group. If they fight across fields, the Miao Group will not collapse in a short period of time unless they spend a lot of money. Meng Lei looked at the messages scrolling in the group, her eyes thoughtful. The fact that Ji Tianwen was willing to declare war on the entire Miao Group for her was actually beyond her expectations. Her original idea was just to target Miao Ruixiang. Although targeting Miao Ruixiang seems to be no different from targeting the Miao Group, there are actually essential differences. If Ji Tianwen posted on Weibo announcing that he would launch a revenge action against Miao Ruixiang himself, then the conflict would still be within the controllable range. But if Ji Tianwen specifically mentioned the Miao Group, it would be tantamount to directly breaking off relations and pushing the conflict to an irreconcilable level. Although Ji Tianwen also put forward a prerequisite, that is, to join the cooperation between Meng Group and Julong Technology. But Meng Lei always felt something was wrong. She has already learned about the situation of the Meng Group in detail. Even if Ji Tianwen does not take this opportunity to put forward conditions, but directly asks for investment from the Meng Group or Julong Technology, there is a high probability that it will succeed. Could it be that joining the virtual reality research and development project was just an excuse he made to help her? Just as I was thinking about it, the cell phone rang. Meng Lei came back to her senses and saw that the person calling was Ji Tianwen. Her heart inexplicably stopped. She calmed herself down and answered the phone. Lei, the funds are in place, and we need your cooperation next. Ji Tianwen said. Meng Lei had gotten used to being called Lei and didn't feel awkward like before. She asked, how can I cooperate? Just keep silent. Ji Tianwen said bluntly. Okay. Meng Lei agreed readily, then pursed her lips and asked, you are unwilling to accept Yuan Meng's 40% stake. It should be because you don't believe that I can take over the cake in Miao Group's hands. Can you tell me why you don't believe me? Ji Tianwen did not answer, but asked, Lei, what do you think jewelry is used for? Of course I wear it on my body. Not accurate enough. What's the correct statement? Wear it on your body and show it to others. Meng Lei asked, So your design is too mediocre. Ji Tianwen said bluntly, it cannot be denied that your design has meaning and connotation, but it is useless to have connotation alone. No matter how wonderful you say, it does not mean that you can get promoted and get rich after wearing it. After a pause, Ji Tianwen asked again, just like clothes, you design patterns and designs into the clothes so that people can't see them at a glance, then why don't I just buy a solid color without patterns and designs? That makes sense. Meng Lei nodded slowly and said, it seems that I am confused as a person in charge. Then I will redesign all the jewelry in the series. Ji Tianwen chuckled and said, you are a teachable kid. I didn't waste my time talking in vain. Miao Group. In the chairman's office, the father and his two sons had gloomy faces, making the atmosphere in the room even more solemn. After a while, Bai Yueguang asked, has public opinion changed? No. Miao Ruifeng shook his head and replied, we also found a group of marketing accounts to lead the trend, but it didn't work. People on the internet believed that the reeds were sent by our Miao Group. I don't know what kind of magic potion Ji Tianwen gave to that bastard. Hasn't Ji Group responded yet? Bai Yueguang looked at his eldest son. Miao Ruixiang said angrily, Ji Group is unwilling to negotiate unless we apologize publicly. Bang! Bai Yueguang slammed his fist on the table, scaring both of his sons. A public apology is definitely impossible. Once an apology is made, it is tantamount to implicitly acknowledging the act of sending a wreath. This will cause the Miao Group's reputation to plummet and become the target of criticism. Ji Wuyong and Ji Tianwen, father and son, are a bit shameless. Bai Yueguang clenched his fists, his face so gloomy that it seemed as if water could come out of it. Miao Ruixiang nodded in agreement. Dad, you're absolutely right. You even went over to say hello in person, but even so, that old man Ji Wuyong still didn't give you any face at all and didn't take our Miao Group seriously at all. We should fight back and let the Ji Group and everyone in Pingju City see that we are not easy to bully. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Come in. Bai Yueguang said. The door opened, and the secretary outside said tremblingly, Chairman, Ji Tianwen, posted on Weibo again. Chapter 19. Do you think it's worth it? This post is a bit long. It will take about 10-15 minutes to read it in its entirety. Patient friends can read it in its entirety. If you are impatient, just scroll to the bottom. I have highlighted the key points. My girlfriend, Ms. Meng Lei, has always been an image of a strong woman, but beneath her strong appearance, she hides a simple, lovely, and even somewhat fragile heart of a little girl. Like most girls, she likes pink dresses and beautiful jewelry. Since she was a child, she had a wish, which was to open her own jewelry store. The name Yuan Meng is homophonic with Yuan Meng, and the original intention of establishing the store was to fulfill her childhood dream. But just when she was full of confidence and thought her dream was about to come true, she was suppressed by the Miao Group. I can't help but ask, can't other companies touch the business that Miao Group is doing? From here on, all the comments were directed at the Miao Group. Bai Yueguang didn't want to read these and just slid his mouse to the end of the article. The following is the key point. 1. I just want to stand up for my girlfriend. No one else can bully her except me. 2. No need to guess how I will attack the Miao Group. I will just throw money at it. If I can't defeat it, I will lose. 3. Ji's group has no interest in snatching business from Miao's group, and will not get involved in the jewelry field in the future. Even if the Yuan Meng brand really takes off in the future, it will not be as greedy as the Miao Group, expanding stores from top to bottom in all directions. In each city, it will not open more than 5 brand-owned stores at most. Dad, Ji Tianwen is too arrogant. Miao Ruifeng gritted his teeth and said, this bastard actually dared to look down on us. Arrogant. Miao Yueguang said viciously, it should be said that he is too insidious. Insidious? Brothers Miao Ruixiang and Miao Ruifeng looked at each other, both confused. They really didn't see what was sinister about Ji Tianwen's Weibo post. Miao Yueguang said angrily, Ji Tianwen, this bastard, first put Meng Lei in a weak position, incited public opinion, labeled the Miao Group as a villain, and then completely disowned the Ji Group. The most important thing is his last sentence, even if the brand is successful, he will not expand the number of stores. Miao Ruixiang thought for a moment, then suddenly realized. We are the boss of the industry, and the ones who are most likely to kill us are our peers. Ji Tianwen publicly announced that after Yuanmeng becomes successful, it will not expand its stores on a large scale. Does he want to make us the public enemy of the industry? Miao Yueguang nodded, a gloomy look flashed across his eyes, and he said slowly, if this article was written by Ji Tianwen himself, it means that we have underestimated this bastard before. Dad, what should we do now? Miao Ruixiang asked. Miao Yueguang lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, exhaled the smoke and said, when the enemy comes, the general will fight, when the water comes, the earth will cover it, isn't it just spending money? I want to see how much the Ji Group is willing to spend. However, although he said it with great confidence, he actually regretted it deeply. If I had known Ji Tianwen had such a bad temper, even if I wanted to suppress him, I should have used a relatively gentle method. But there is no way. The current situation forces us to do it. No matter how unwilling we are, we have no choice but to go ahead with it. Miao Yueguang's only hope is that the budget prepared by Ji Group is insufficient and they are reluctant to spend too much money on the eldest daughter of the Meng family. Large double bed. Ji Tianwen took out his phone and simply scrolled through the hundreds of messages under the Weibo posts, and heaved a sigh of relief. The current internet trend is still somewhat naive. In a few years, let alone writing such a short essay, even if you write a novel of several million words, sober netizens will only think that the Ji Group and the Miao Group are just biting each other. At this time, Meng Lei called. After Ji Tianwen answered the call, he heard Meng Lei ask, did I hear what my parents said to you? What did you say? Ji Tian asked in confusion. That's right, my childhood dream was to open a jewelry store of my own, Meng Lei replied. This is also the reason why she was so angry when she received the wreath that she was eager to get Ji Tianwen to death. To some extent, whether Yuanmeng makes money or not is not particularly important. As long as the business can run smoothly, even if it breaks even, she can accept it. Because she also knew that the Meng Group's track was not here, and she could not put all her energy on the Yuanmeng brand. Ji Tianwen was stunned for a moment, then he said in surprise, Lei, your childhood dream was really to open a jewelry store. What I wrote on Weibo was just a story based on the brand Yuanmeng. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Meng Lei suddenly had a very strange feeling, which could not be described in words, but was real. Shaking her head, she stopped dwelling on the issue and asked, then promise me that Yuanmeng will not open more than 5 stores in each city. At least you should discuss this with me, right? Miss, what era is this? You can still make money by giving up offline channels and focusing on online sales. Ji Tianwen said reasonably, besides, aren't you planning to go the high-end brand route? Opening too many stores is not a good thing. It is easy to damage the brand image. Meng Lei was speechless and changed the subject again. How much money do you plan to use to fight against the Miao Group this time? Ji Tianwen said, about 3 billion. 3 billion. Hearing this number, Meng Lei couldn't help but be shocked. Meng Lei tried to hold back, but couldn't help asking, do you think it's worth it? Of course it's worth it. Very worth it. Ji Tianwen said without hesitation. Although 3 billion yuan was wasted, once the research and development results of Julong technology come out, the size of Ji Group will at least increase by 1/4. This deal can no longer be said to be worth it, it should be said to be a great value. However, when Meng Lei heard these words, they took on a different meaning. Spending 3 billion just to help her vent her anger, I still think it's worth it. Meng Lei's heart was filled with ripples, and her tone unconsciously became much softer. She said, if there is anything you need my cooperation with next, please tell me at any time. The phone call was hung up. Ji Tianwen waited patiently, and not long after, a man named Huang Haitao contacted him through his connections. When the call was connected, Huang Haitao said, "Mr. G, I'm sorry to bother you so late. If you are free tomorrow at noon, please come to Yueguang Tower. I have something to discuss with you." After saying that, as if he was afraid that Ji Tianwen would refuse, Huang Haitao quickly added, "Discuss how to deal with the Miao Group." Chapter 20, Take out 100 million to help out. The phone call from Huang Haitao made Ji Qian understand clearly. The last paragraph he left on Weibo, which was a strategy to deliberately guide Miao Zhejiang's colleagues to compete with the Miao Group, has begun to work. In the jewelry market, Huang Haitao is Miao Zhejiang's biggest rival. It is well known in Pingju City that the two have a bad relationship. The reason why the relationship between the two is bad, in addition to the inherent hatred between colleagues, is that they were once partners. According to Huang Haitao, Miao Zhejiang misappropriated his planning and sales plans, seized the supply and sales channels, and set up a scheme to kick him out, which led to the current Miao Group. Miao Zhejiang naturally denied it and said that he was the victim. The two sides have been engaged in a lot of verbal battles over the years. From this point of view, it is not surprising that Huang Haitao took the initiative to call and contact to help. The next day at noon, Ji Tianwen led Meng Lei to Yueguang Tower. This is one of the few century-old shops in Pingju City, and its overall style tends to be ancient. There are big red lanterns hanging outside the door, and the waiters inside are also wearing ancient costumes. If you ignore the surrounding tall buildings and vehicles, you will really feel like you are traveling through time. Enter a large private room on the third floor. I saw that there were already quite a few people sitting around the big round table. Seeing Ji Tianwen coming in, more than a dozen people stood up and started greeting him. "Master Ji, I haven't seen you for a while, but you're still as charming as ever. Master Ji, what you said about the Miao Group was really domineering. Master Ji and Miss Meng are a perfect match made in heaven." Faced with the smiling faces, Ji Tianwen also put on a smile and chatted with everyone. In fact, he didn't know most of these people. But that's how it is in the business world. As long as we sit at the same table, we are all friends. Even though you may forget the other person's name before the meal is even over. After some greetings, Ji Qian asked and sat down in the main seat. The person sitting on his left was Huang Haitao. He is tall and thin, looks to be around 50 years old, has a slightly hunched back, and speaks with a strong accent, giving people a very down-to-earth feeling. "Mr. Ji, it's such an honor that you can come here despite your busy schedule," Huang Haitao said with a smile on his face. Ji Tianwen waved his hand and said, "Mr. Huang, please don't say that. I should be thanking you for helping me. Mr. Ji, you are too polite. Everyone in Pingju knows that Miao Zhejiang is my biggest enemy. Even if I lose money this time, I will make a profit," Huang Haitao said in a loud voice. In one sentence, it not only expresses the attitude, but also sets the tone for the meal. Huang Haitao pointed at the people present and continued, "Everyone here has been badly tricked by Miao Zhejiang. Young Master Ji is going to deal with the Miao Group this time, and we can't just stand by and watch." Everyone present nodded repeatedly, and then spoke one after another, as if they were holding a criticism meeting against Miao Zhejiang. Ji Qian asked, but the answer went in one ear and out the other, and he didn't listen seriously at all. To him, it didn't matter what grudge these people had against Miao Zhejiang. What is important is how much role it can play in the next battle. Huang Haitao obviously knew that this was not what Ji Tianwen wanted to hear, so he didn't give everyone too much time to speak. "Mr. Ji, could you please tell me how much money you plan to spend to attack the Miao Group this time?" Huang Haitao asked. Ji Tianwen smiled and made an okay gesture. 300 million. Huang Haitao asked tentatively. Ji Tianwen shook his head, indicating that the answer was wrong. Huang Haitao was stunned for a moment, his eyes widened as he asked, 3 billion. "That's right." Ji Tianwen nodded in acknowledgement. Boom! It was like a thunderclap exploding in the ears. Everyone present was so shocked that they were speechless and their heads were dizzy. Everyone's first thought was that the G Group was crazy. 3 billion. The prince of the G Group is actually a spendthrift. Oh no, he is so arrogant to this extent. Ji Tianwen held Meng Lei's soft and cool hand and grinned. "As long as my Lei can vent her anger, let alone 3 billion, even if it's 30 billion or 300 billion, as long as I can afford it, I will give it out without hesitation." Meng Lei lowered her eyes and glanced at the hand she was holding, feeling the warmth coming from her palm, and a strange feeling arose in her heart. Although reason told her that Ji Tianwen was just speaking for the sake of politeness. However, her emotions took over and she couldn't calm down. Huang Haitao held his breath for a long time, then gave a thumbs up and said, "Master Ji, I finally opened my eyes." After that, he turned his gaze to Meng Lei and said sincerely, "Ms. Meng, to be honest, I, old Huang, really envy you. If I were a woman, I would definitely try every possible way to get Master Ji into my hands." Everyone laughed out loud and joined in the comments. Meng Lei smiled implicitly and didn't respond. Before leaving their house, her mother repeatedly warned her to put Ji Tianwen's face first in everything. Especially when it comes to speaking, speak when you should, and don't say a word when you shouldn't. Wait until various dishes are served. Huang Haitao personally poured wine for Ji Tianwen, then stood up and said, "Let's raise our glasses together. The first glass of wine is to young Master Ji." Naturally, everyone had no objections and they all stood up with their cups in hand. Ji Tianwen didn't hesitate. He knocked his glass on the table, then stood up, raised the glass and drank it all in one gulp. Everyone finished their drinks, applauded enthusiastically, and spoke flattering words. Ji Tianwen said a few humble words and sat down with a smile. After 3 rounds of wine, the dishes have 5 flavors. Huang Haitao poured wine for Ji Tianwen and asked, "Mr. Ji, how do you plan to attack the Miao group?" Hearing this, everyone present pricked up their ears and perked up. All-round attack. Ji Tianwen replied calmly, "From supply to sales, from public opinion to word of mouth." After that, he explained his plan in detail. After hearing this, everyone exchanged glances and could see the surprise in each other's eyes. When they heard that Ji Tianwen was using 3 billion yuan to fight the Miao group, they were shocked and thought that Ji Tianwen was a fool who would do anything for a woman. But after listening to Ji Tianwen's plan, he felt that this prince of the Ji group was still something. "Let me make my position clear first. I will pay 100 million yuan and I must make sure that Bai Yueguang cannot make any comeback," Huang Haitao said, raising his hand. Ji Tianwen's expression remained unchanged, but he was actually certain in his heart that the resentment between Huang Haitao and Bai Yueguang was deeper than what appeared on the surface. If this weren't the case, he wouldn't have taken out 100 million to help out. Chapter 21 Planning to rob. The others had obviously discussed it beforehand and started to offer their prices. More than a dozen people pooled together 12 million. On average, each person invested less than 1 million. Ji Tianwen's smile gradually faded, and he leaned back in his chair, expressionless and said, "You said it was so lively, but you only got this little money together to send off the beggars." A middle-aged man stood up and said with a wry smile, "Mr. Ji, we are not like you. We have a small family and a small business, and it is not easy to make money." The rest of the people agreed. "We were already suppressed by that bastard Bai Yueguang, so it's not easy for us to come up with so much. Master Ji, we know you don't think highly of this amount of money. We would like to give you more, but the problem is that our strength does not allow it. In fact, I think that you and Mr. Huang together are enough to defeat the Miao group." Ji Tianwen chuckled, narrowed his eyes and asked, "Boss Huang and I will defeat the Miao group, and then you will come and share the benefits." As soon as these words were spoken, the originally happy atmosphere instantly dropped to freezing point. The middle-aged man named Zhu Kaishian, who had taken the lead in speaking earlier, laughed awkwardly and said, "What are you talking about, Mr. Ji? We just want to help out." "Help?" Ji Tianwen couldn't help laughing and said mercilessly, "Do you guys think I'm a fool?" Zhu Kaishian kept smiling and argued, "Master Ji, please don't get me wrong. We really are here to help out and have done our best. This matter is mainly about you helping your girlfriend vent her anger. You can't complain that we haven't helped enough, right?" Ji Tianwen applauded and said, "Your words are beautiful and your calculations are clear. Since you insist that I make things clear, then I will speak frankly." He stood up slowly, his eyes sweeping across the faces of everyone present. It is obvious that more than half of the people sitting here have been doing business longer than he is old. However, no one dared to make eye contact with him at this moment. Ji Tianwen sneered, "When a whale falls, everything comes to life. In your race, the Miao group is the whale that occupies most of the market share. If it falls, then who will get the market share it controls?" Everyone present looked at each other in bewilderment, all speechless, but their eyes glanced in Zhu Kaishuan's direction intentionally or unintentionally. Zhu Kaishuan's smile was stiff, and he said with a stiff face, "Master Ji, you can't say that. If we don't help, will you not attack the Miao Group? Of course. Ji Tianwen said, I defeated the Miao Group mainly to vent my girlfriend's anger. I won't stop you from making a fortune quietly, but you, a dozen people, gathered more than 10 million to disgust me, and I am very unhappy. After hearing this, Zhu Kaishen and others wanted to die. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have helped at all. Wouldn't it be better to just make a fortune in silence? The idea of Zhu Kaishen and others is actually very simple, that is, spend little money and do big things. Get the maximum benefit at the lowest cost. As long as they contribute money to help the cause, then when the Miao Group falls, they, as the heroes who contributed money, will have the right to divide up the Miao Group's market share. As for whether Ji Tianwen would be able to see through the abacus, they were confident that even if they were discovered, they could use their excellent flattery skills to prevent this foolish and wealthy prince from worrying about the details. After all, they were helping out with good intentions. Don't hit someone who smiles at you. What's more, they are smiling people who are eager to help. However, reality is cruel. It seems that their plan is not working. Zhu Kaishen gritted his teeth and said, Master Ji, I won't say anything more. Since you think my contribution is too little, I will add another 4 million to make it 5 million. Upon hearing this, the others also expressed their desire to pay more. As a result, the price increased from 12 million to 20 million. Ji Tianwen shook his head and said, I don't have time to waste with you. There are more than a dozen of you. You need to at least gather 300 million yuan. You can decide how much each of you will contribute. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed at once. Zhu Kaishen moved the corners of his mouth, trying to force out a smile, but he failed after trying several times, so he simply gave up and said coldly, Master Ji, are you planning to rob me? Whatever you think, I only care about money. Ji Tianwen said in a tough manner, it's already conscientious enough to ask you for 300 million. Once you divide up the market share in the hands of the Miao Group, you can quickly get your money back in a short period of time. The rest is long-term profit. What if we don't pay the money? Zhu Kaishen said coldly. It's very simple. Ji Tianwen smiled easily and said, I only need to spend half of the 3 billion in my hand to cause a heavy blow to the Miao Group. It will be a big blow to its vitality. It is unknown whether Bai Yueguang dares to continue to fight me at that time. My girlfriend is kind-hearted and beautiful. If Bai Yueguang puts aside his pride and kneels before her with tears in his eyes, she will surely be soft-hearted and let the Miao Group go. As for the remaining money, you may as well think about whether I can use it to smash you to death. The corners of Meng Lei's mouth twitched slightly, and she suddenly felt that she couldn't understand this man anymore. He's clearly being a hooligan, but why does he look a bit handsome? Zhu Kaishen and the others all looked very unhappy and felt a chill down their spines. This prince of the Ji Group really deserves a beating. Tianwen, have some tea. Meng Lei poured out the tea in Ji Tianwen's cup and poured a new cup of tea. I'm thirsty, Lei is so thoughtful. Ji Tianwen took the teacup, took a sip, and put it on the table. At this time, Huang Haitao spoke up to smooth things over, we are all on the same front now. With Master Ji here, Miao Group's good days are numbered. I think we can discuss in advance how to distribute the market share in Miao Group's hands. Although he was the one who called Zhu Kaishen and others over, he actually couldn't stand what they did. However, as a businessman, you still have to put the overall situation first. He may dislike these people, but he will never dislike money. Zhu Kaishen and others obviously did the same. They chose to suppress their inner anger, and while discussing how to divide the cake, they quickly weighed the pros and cons in their minds. In fact, there is no need to calculate it, just like Ji Tianwen said. A dozen people pooled 300 million yuan, and as long as they could exchange it for the market share of the Miao Group, it would be a sure win. However, I couldn't achieve the expected result of exchanging small costs for big benefits, so I couldn't help feeling depressed. After roughly discussing how to divide the cake, everyone chose to compromise. Chapter 22 The war officially begins. Ji Tianwen nodded with satisfaction and said, words are not enough. Let's set up a third-party account. Mr. Huang will deposit 100 million, and each of you will deposit 300 million. I will deposit 600 million first, and we will make up 1 billion as funds to attack the Miao Group. Everyone will supervise it together. In addition, the verbal agreement we just reached has also been put on paper. Any comments? After he finished speaking, he glanced at everyone present. Everyone nodded, indicating that they had no objection. Ji Tianwen nodded and said, "Okay, then we will start assigning tasks. After we break it down, it will be easier to carry out the plan in an orderly manner." Everyone nodded again and began to speak actively. All kinds of dirty tricks and routines were constantly spoken by the people present. After hearing the end, Ji Tianwen couldn't help but give a thumbs up and praised, "You are still the ones who are mean." Everyone. Is there anyone who praises others as much as you do? After having a good meal and a few drinks, Ji Tianwen and Meng Lei left the restaurant and got into a business car. Meng Lei stared at Ji Tianwen's face with her beautiful eyes, as if she was trying to see something. Ji Tianwen said with a smile, Lei, even though I am handsome, you can't stare at me like that, right? Be more subtle." Meng Lei rolled her eyes at him and said speechlessly, "Don't be so self-indulgent. I'm just curious, do you have a plan to trick Zhu Kaixian and his people?" "That's about right." Ji Tianwen nodded and admitted, "Last night, after Huang Haitao called me, I asked someone to make a list of people who were on the same track as Bai Yueguang and ranked them. It just so happened that almost all of them were here today, so I didn't have to look for them again." After a pause, Ji Tianwen put his hand on Meng Lei's shoulder and said with a smile, "They are not you, there is no reason for me to let them take advantage of me for nothing." Meng Lei's cheeks flushed slightly. She looked at the hand on her shoulder. Although she didn't particularly dislike it, she still reached out and took Ji Tianwen's hand away. She asked, "What if Zhu Kaixian and his people refuse to pay?" Ji Tianwen said without hesitation, "Then I will personally take over the market share of Miao Group." "Take over personally?" Meng Lei frowned and said, "Didn't you publicly promise before that the Ji Group would not get involved in the jewelry industry?" Ji Tianwen did not answer, but looked at Meng Lei with suspicion. Meng Lei felt a little uncomfortable being stared at, and asked angrily, "Why are you staring at me?" "I was wondering, Lei, what school did you graduate from? What's the meaning?" Meng Lei was a little unhappy and felt that she was being questioned. Ji Tianwen explained, "Even someone like me who doesn't study hard knows that businessmen's words are the least trustworthy. I said that the Ji Group will not enter the Miao Group's track, but can't I set up a separate company to seize the market? As long as the company is not incorporated under the Ji Group, I will not be breaking my promise. If I want to be more secretive, I can find someone to hold the shares on my behalf, or find an unrelated person to serve as the company's legal representative. As long as I think about it, there are many ways to prevent this company from being openly related to me and the Ji Group." Meng Lei was stunned for a moment, slapped her forehead, and her face turned red again. The only difference is that it was not because of shyness before, this time it was because of shame. How could she ask such a simple, even stupid question? Quickly adjusting her mentality, Meng Lei suddenly looked directly into Ji Tianwen's eyes and said softly, "You just said that businessmen's words are the least trustworthy. Then can I believe what you said before?" "What words?" "I have said so many things before, who knows which specific sentence you are asking about?" Ji Tianwen thought so in his heart but didn't say it out loud. Maybe it was the effect of the alcohol, or maybe his talent for picking up girls suddenly awakened. Ji Tianwen's eyes became gentle, and he said seriously, Lei, you can always believe what I say to you." When Meng Lei heard this, she suddenly felt as if her heart skipped a beat. She didn't dare to continue looking at Ji Tianwen, and turned her head to look out the window, but her heartbeat couldn't be controlled and quickened. When the 1 billion yuan of funds were all concentrated in the third-party account, the contract was signed. The attack on the Miao Group unfolded like a violent storm. Ji Tianwen was responsible for negotiating with the suppliers of the Miao Group. He used a method of coercion and inducement to make each supplier stop supplying goods to the Miao Group, thus successfully cutting off the supply chain. At the same time, Huang Haitao also went door to door to find the landlords of the stores rented by Ji Group, promised to pay the penalty, and then rented the stores at double the price. Zhu Kaixian and others were not idle either. Some have set up rights protection groups, bringing together people who have lawsuits against the Miao Group and providing free legal aid. Some posted real-name reporting posts on major social media platforms, revealing that the Miao Group cut corners, passed off inferior products as good ones, and sold defective products to customers at the price of good ones. Others contacted the senior executives of Miao Group privately, intending to create a gap from within. For a time, the entire Pingju business community was in an uproar. Ji Tianwen is really amazing. In just 2 days, two-thirds of the Miao Group stores have already closed. It's not just the stores. I heard the latest news that even the suppliers are no longer cooperating with the Miao Group. If you search online now, 8 out of 10 news reports about the Miao Group are negative. This is really going to destroy the Miao Group. The supply chain, sales chain, an online public opinion war, this momentum is really too strong, the Miao Group is probably going to fail. However, there are also dissenting voices. It's too early to say anything. The G Group is going to fight the Miao Group. It's not certain who will win. The Miao Group has accumulated strength over the years, and its strength cannot be underestimated. Even though the G Group has put up a big battle, no one can predict whether it will be weak in the future. It's just like in a war. If you don't fight to the death, you can't scare your opponent. This time, I'm on the side of the Miao Group, waiting to be slapped in the face. Pink bedroom. Xia Shuyun sat at the desk, holding her cell phone, watching the heated discussions in the circle group. The more she read, the more annoyed she felt. Especially those remarks that envied Meng Lei almost made her drop her phone several times. Ji Tianwen, you bastard. Xia Shuyun clenched her fists, her eyes full of hatred. She suppressed her disgust and stayed with Ji Tianwen for 5 years. All in all, Ji Tianwen had invested less than 1 billion yuan in the Xia Group. But what about Meng Lei? Less than a month after making peace with Ji Tianwen took out 3 billion yuan just to help Meng Lei vent her anger. Why? How is she inferior to Meng Lei? Chapter 23. What do you think I should do? Xia Shuyun forced herself to calm down and think seriously about the reason. Given the current situation, whether for the sake of the Xia Group or the bright future of her and her brother Zimo, she must find out the reason and method of how Meng Lei controls Ji Tianwen. In fact, she had also thought about the possibility that Ji Tianwen had been in a relationship with Meng Lei for a long time, but this possibility was not great. Given Meng Lei's personality, if Ji Tianwen had been in a relationship with her a long time ago, the Meng Group wouldn't be in its current state. After a moment, the night when he stopped a car a few days ago emerged in his mind, and Ji Tian asked him about the action of getting off the car and pulling up his pants. Xia Shuyun felt that she had found the reason, and then she couldn't help feeling nauseous. This couple of bastards really made her feel so sick that she wanted to vomit. At this moment, the cell phone rang. Seeing that the caller on the screen was Brother Zimo, Xia Shuyun's frown relaxed a little. In the room of a star-rated hotel in the imperial capital, Xiao Zimo suppressed his inner urgency and offered care and sweet words. He knew very well what Xia Shuyun needed. To deal with this kind of love brain, the most taboo thing is to be impatient. You have to let the other person get carried away first, and then tell him your true intentions. Otherwise, it will inevitably cause resentment. After estimating that the groundwork had been laid, Xiao Zimo asked, Shuyun, has your relationship with Ji Tianwen improved recently? No. Xia Shuyun replied, and her originally good mood disappeared in an instant. When Xiao Zimo heard this, his expression suddenly turned ugly. He had been in the capital for half a month and had met one old, ugly rich woman after another, but he was taken advantage of for free time and time again. If he hadn't wanted to become a popular idol, he would even have thought about changing his nationality. Because he heard that the little star there was very popular among the wealthy women in the capital. Moreover, she is a young, beautiful and wealthy woman. Instead of the fat, ugly, rich old woman he met, who was stinking from head to toe and choking from below. Xiao Zimo suppressed his inner dissatisfaction and said in a hurt and pitiful tone, Shuyun, things are not going well for me either. I'm a newcomer and don't have a fan base. I can't get good resources unless I bring in money. Otherwise, even if I go to a popular show, I can only be a background board and I won't even get a close-up shot. At the end, he sighed and said, alas. I'm really useless. If I were one of the top for returning sons, not only could I solve the funding problem of the Xia Group, but I could also live happily with you. Xia Shuyun was so moved that she almost cried when she heard this, and she hurriedly comforted him, Brother Zimo, don't be discouraged. Just like you said before, we have already passed the most difficult time. Now we are working hand in hand, and we will definitely be able to overcome the difficulties smoothly. Go to hell, I want to take a shortcut. Xiao Zimo cursed in his heart, but said, Shuyun, your encouragement is like a stimulant to me. For our future, I will definitely work hard. After saying this, he recounted how hard it had been in the capital and how much he missed her. Of course, he couldn't have said that it was the hardship caused by kidney overdraft, but he was just making it up about the hardship at work. After listening to this, Xia Shuyun choked up and said, "Brother Zimo, you have suffered so much. It's all my fault for being too willful at that time. If I had been able to hold back and not wear a wedding dress on stage and not propose to you, we wouldn't have to be so difficult now. How dare you bring this up?" Xiao Zimo was furious, but what had already happened, and neither anger nor regret could change the outcome. Be patient and say a few words of comfort. Xiao Zimo also asked Xia Shuyun about the specific methods she had used to ease the relationship with Ji Tianwen during this period. Immersed in the warmth, Xia Shuyun naturally told everyone she knew. He told everyone about her specific actions and the speculation about why Ji Tianwen was willing to spend 3 billion to vent Meng Lei's anger. After listening to this, Xiao Zimo wanted to persuade Xia Shuyun to go directly to Ji Tianwen's bed and take off her pants. After all, he could make tens of billions just by sleeping, so Xiaoboyi wouldn't do it. But thinking that Xia Shuyun was a shady person, he held back. "Brother Zimo, if I really have to sell my body to exchange for our happiness, then, what do you think I should do?" Xia Shuyun asked tentatively. During this period, the Xia group has been having a really difficult time. Not only did they have to sell some of their assets to pay off their debts, they couldn't even pay next month's salaries. Xia Jinder was so worried that he couldn't sleep every day. He repeatedly advised her to go to Ji Tianwen and asked her to get the investment at all costs. Xia Shuyun had a premonition that if she did not agree within 1 or 2 days, she might be tied up by her desperate father and forcibly sent to Ji Tianwen, or even to bed. Xiao Zimo heard that Xia Shuyun was willing to sacrifice herself, and his mind raced. It's a good thing that Xia Shuyun wants to sacrifice herself, but since this love-brained girl asked him about his attitude, he wouldn't be stupid enough to say something like, "For happiness, I can only sacrifice you." "Shuyun, there must be a way out when the car reaches the mountain." Xiao Zimo said, "Well, I will fly back to Pingju City tomorrow, and I will invite Ji Tianwen to have a meal and explain the previous matter in person. Maybe it will be useful." "Brother Zimo, thank you." Xia Shuyun's eyes were filled with tears. Sure enough, her brother Zimo cared about her. After some more sweet talk, the two hung up the phone. At this time, there was a knock on the door. Xiao Zimo opened the door and saw the female agent walk in. The female agent had thick foundation on her face, wore false eyelashes, and had bright red lipstick on her lips. Her burly figure gave people a huge sense of oppression. "Sister Hong, was Mrs. Howe satisfied with me this afternoon?" Xiao Zimo asked with a flattering smile. Sister Hong snorted coldly and said unhappily, "How dare you bring that up? You almost ruined my reputation." Xiao Zimo's smile froze and he quickly said a few nice words. "This." Xiao Zimo was almost in tears and said with a bitter face. Sister Hong said expressionlessly, "I gave you a chance, but you are useless. There are so many rich sisters, but not one is satisfied with you. You can only blame yourself for not being capable." Chapter 24 Sick Makeup. Early morning. The curtains opened automatically and the window opened a crack. Ji Tianwen, who was awakened by the cry of seagulls, sat up from the bed and stretched. I got out of bed, walked to the window, looked at the golden beach outside, the endless sea, and the seagulls flying through the sky, and my mood became particularly relaxed. After being stunned for a while, Ji Chen asked about washing and changing clothes. Then I got in the car with my dad and went to G Group. Just as the father and son were about to enter the special elevator, they heard a familiar voice behind them, "Mr. G, Mr. G. Stay, stay." Ji Wuyong walked into the elevator without stopping. Ji Tianwen stopped and turned to look at the middle-aged woman who was stopped by the security guard. The woman looked to be in her 40s, with obvious crow's feet at the corners of her eyes, but judging from her appearance, she still had some charm. She was none other than Xia Jinder's wife, Xia Shuyun's mother, named Liu Liji. In the past half-month, Xia Jinder and Liu Liji have visited Ji Group many times. Seeing Ji Tianwen or Ji Wuyong is like fans meeting their idols, so enthusiastic. But, just like most idols and fans, there is a barrier of security. Can be seen, but cannot be touched. "Master Ji, Master Ji." Seeing Ji Tianwen looking over, Liu Liji seemed to be afraid that Ji Tianwen would order the security guards to kick her out of the Ji Group, so she hurriedly shouted, "Master Ji, Shuyun already knows she was wrong, she regrets it." Ji Tianwen waved his hand, signaling the security guard to move aside. Liu Liji's eyes lit up with joy, and she trotted to Ji Tianwen with a smile on her face. Ms. Liu, will Miss Xia also regret it? Ji Chen asked lightly. Master Ji, Shuyun really regrets it. Liu Naji said with tears in her eyes. These past few days at home, she has locked herself in her room, refused to eat or drink, and kept crying. As a mother, I am really worried. If this continues, I am worried that Xu Yun will really go to extremes. Ji Tianwen had a blank expression on his face, and he didn't look anxious or concerned at all. However, he was thinking that it was almost time to dry the clothes and it was time to meet Xu Yun. When Liu Naji saw that Ji Tianwen had no intention of turning around and leaving, hope suddenly ignited in her heart, and she struck while the iron was hot. Master Ji, everything I said is true. Xu Yun has been calling your name even in her dreams these days. You have been together for 5 years. It's such a pity to break up just like that. Ji Tianwen didn't respond, but asked directly, where is Xu Yun now? She's at home, I'll call her right away. Liu Naji immediately took out her mobile phone and called her daughter. The call was connected quickly. Before Liu Naji could say anything, she heard noisy background noise. She was somewhat glad that she didn't turn on the speakerphone, otherwise, she would be exposed as soon as she heard the sound. Xu Yun, I'm at G Group now. Yes, I have met Ji Xiao. Okay, I'll tell him for you. After hanging up the phone, Liu Naji said to Ji Tianwen, Mr. Ji, Xu Yun said that she would like to invite you to have lunch at Yalog restaurant at noon. She has something to tell you in person. Okay. Ji Tianwen agreed casually and turned to walk towards the special elevator. After a period of hard work, the separation from the Xia group has been basically completed. As for fighting with the Miao group, you don't need to spend too much time on it, just spend money. Taking the time to meet Xu Yun is like watching a clown show. Watching Ji Tianwen enter the elevator, Liu Naji left the G group and called her daughter again. Hey, where are you now? Mom, I'm at the airport. You stupid girl, why are you running to the airport for no reason? Xu Yun didn't dare to say that she was here to pick up Xiao Zimo. She coughed twice and asked, Mom, what did you mean by that sentence you just said? Speaking of business, Liu Naji stopped worrying about other issues and said in a low voice, I have already made an appointment with Ji Tianwen for you. Go to the Yalog Hotel right now and book a private room. Go there and wait. By the way, put on some sick makeup before you go. Sick makeup? Xu Yun was puzzled and asked, why do you need to put on sick makeup? Liu Naji explained, I told Ji Tianwen that you've been having a miserable time these days. You don't want to eat or drink. I guess it softened his heart. You put on a sick makeup to prove that I'm not lying. It will also help attract investment. I understand. Xu Yun said suddenly. Liu Naji said solemnly, remember, this opportunity is rare. If you still can't attract investment, then the Xia group will be completely finished, and our whole family will have to go out to beg for food. Yalog restaurant is considered one of the highest-end restaurants in Pingju City. The word high-end does not necessarily mean that the food is delicious, but it definitely means high consumption. However, for a wealthy young man like Ji Tianwen, it is just a common occurrence. Therefore, he was dressed casually, in a white t-shirt, black shorts, and a pair of slippers, which made him stand out from the crowd among the diners in the restaurant who were dressed in formal attire. The restaurant manager is a chubby, unprepossessing guy, but his name sounds quite fashionable, Zheng Yici. Seeing Ji Tianwen, a big customer who hadn't been here for a long time, coming in, he immediately went to greet him, bowed and said, Mr. Ji, Miss Xia is on the second floor. I'll take you there. Ji Tianwen nodded, and under the guidance of Zheng Yi's, he walked on the cashmere carpet and went to the second floor. The people dining on the first floor couldn't help but look sideways when they saw this scene. Some of them spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in the restaurant, but although Zheng Yici was very polite, he had never been so attentive. Seeing a young man dressed casually making Zheng Yi so humble, it is hard not to be curious about the young man's identity. Could he be the boss's son? Thinking of this possibility, many socialites who were dining there began to become excited. Second floor. When Ji Tianwen walked into the private room, he was shocked on the spot. If the lights were off, he would definitely suspect that he was not coming to a restaurant but an adventure house. Because Xu Yun's makeup was really scary. That kind of pale face can easily remind people of Sadako from the island country, or the heroine in the country's Liao Zhai movies, which can cause people to feel strongly uncomfortable. Tianwen, you're here. Xia Shuyun stood up, looking surprised, but soon sat down again, holding her forehead, and said with an apologetic smile, "Sorry, I haven't eaten much these days, and my blood sugar is a bit low." Ji Tianwen pretended to want to step forward to show concern, but held back, and said with a stern face, "Don't you have something to tell me? You can tell me now." When Jing Yi's heard this, he tactfully closed the door and left. Xia Shuyun said seriously, "Let me formally apologize to you first. I'm sorry. I was wrong before." Chapter 25 Investing in Xia Group. Looking at Xia Shuyun, who was apologizing sincerely and about to cry at any moment, Ji Tianwen felt relieved, but at the same time, he felt that he was too stupid in his previous life. He clearly had the advantage, but he managed to mess up a good hand. However, he will never make the same mistake again in this life. Even if Xia Shuyun knelt down and kowtowed to him, he would not be soft-hearted, let alone apologize with tears. And then, Ji Tianwen pulled a chair and sat down, his expression as calm as a pool of stagnant water. Xia Shuyun wasn't sure whether Ji Tianwen had calmed down or not, so she could only proceed according to the plan. She tried to make her eyes look sincere and said in a serious tone, "Xiao Zimo and I are really innocent. If you don't believe me, I can call him over and confront him face to face." "Really?" Ji Tianwen was unmoved and said, "If you are really innocent, then you can scold Xiao Zimo now." "I." Xia Shuyun frowned, looking embarrassed. She found it unacceptable to be asked to scold her sweetheart, her white moonlight from her teenage years. Ji Tianwen chuckled, "Can't speak." Xia Shuyun shook her head and denied it, "I just think it's unnecessary. Even if I scold Xiao Zimo, it doesn't seem to prove anything." "Har har." Ji Tianwen said with a wry smile, "But you couldn't even bear to scold Xiao Zimo, that third-rate singer. To me, this proves a lot. Does it really matter whether I scold Xiao Zimo or not?" Xia Shuyun said, suppressing her anger. "It's not important, I just want to have fun." Ji Tianwen said in a lazy tone, "I will feel very comfortable if you scold Xiao Zimo. When I am happy, maybe I can help solve the dilemma of Xia Group." "Are you sure?" Xia Shuyun asked, "If I scold Xiao Zimo, will you be willing to invest in Xia Group?" Ji Tianwen nodded and said, "Sure. Okay. I'll curse." Xia Shuyun clenched her fists and said as if she had made a great decision. With this acting skill, it's really not even as good as that of young handsome guys. Ji Tianwen silently gave his evaluation in his heart and waited patiently for Xia Shuyun to start performing. Xia Shuyun took a deep breath and cursed, "Xiao Zimo is a fool, a idiot, even a pig is smarter than him." Ji Tianwen shook his head and laughed, looking obviously dissatisfied. Seeing this, Xia Shuyun quickly prepared herself mentally. Everything is for investment. It's better to scold Brother Zimo than to sleep with this bastard. After realizing this, Xia Shuyun's choice of words gradually became offensive, and later on, it became even more uncivilized. Ji Tianwen watched this scene with great interest, even though he knew that the words the other party was cursing at were definitely attributed to him. However, it was still very interesting to see Miss Xia cursing like a shrew. After scolding for 5 minutes in a row, Xia Shuyun used up all the vicious words she could think of and asked, "Are you happy now?" "It's okay. What about investing in Xia Group?" "No problem." Ji Tianwen agreed readily, then put his hand into the pocket of his shorts. Xia Shuyun's eyes immediately lit up. Although this bastard is hateful, he still keeps his word. It's just that Brother Zimo has been wronged. Never mind, this is all for the investment. If Brother Zimo is angry, she will just find a way to make him happy. However, just when Xia Shuyun was overjoyed and thought that Ji Tianwen was going to use his cell phone to make a call and ask someone to transfer money to the Xia Group. Dang! A coin was thrown from Ji Tianwen's hand and landed on the crystal glass table. Xia Shuyun was stunned when she saw the dime. What does this mean? Investment in Xia Group. Xia Shuyun tried hard to control her expression, forced out a smile and said, "Tianwen, stop joking, okay? This kind of joke is not funny." "I'm not kidding." Ji Tianwen said seriously, "I originally wanted to throw in a penny, but it's a bit hard to find a penny. If you have a penny coin, you can give me 9 cents. You?" Xia Shuyun could no longer hold back her anger and burst out, "Is it fun to insult people like this?" "How is that an insult?" Ji Tian asked innocently, "I said I would invest, but does a 1-cent investment not count as an investment? Xia Shuyun was so angry that she said angrily, Ji Tianwen, I really didn't expect that you are this kind of person. When you wanted me to invest, you called me Tianwen. After I invested the money, you immediately turned hostile and called me by my real name. Do you think this is appropriate? Ji Tianwen said in a thankful tone, fortunately, I invested a small amount. If I had invested more, wouldn't I have lost a lot? You. Xia Shuyun was so angry that her lungs were about to explode, and tears were swirling in her eyes. From childhood to adulthood, she had never suffered such injustice. If it was someone else who was teasing her, she might not have lost her composure so much. But the one who played tricks on her was Ji Tianwen, who had been obedient to her in everything a month ago. This kind of psychological gap is the most unacceptable. Ji Tianwen leaned back, leaning his back against the backrest of the chair, and said slowly, let me be frank, I just can't stand that Xiao Zimo. Aren't you going to find him to confront him? Call now, as long as you two can be proven innocent, I will invest in Xia Group. Xia Shuyun wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and asked suspiciously, how much? Having been fooled once, she naturally would not believe Ji Tianwen's words again. Ji Tianwen raised his palm and shook it, saying, 500 million is the minimum, there is no upper limit. That's what you said. If you don't believe me, you can record or videotape it. Xia Shuyun stared into Ji Tianwen's eyes, trying to see what he was thinking. Ji Tianwen acted very calmly, his eyes were serious, and there was no sign of joking at all. Okay, I'll trust you again. Xia Shuyun took out her cell phone and said in a warning tone, if you lie to me again, I will never talk to you again. Letting Xiao Zimo come over and clarify things in person was part of the plan. Therefore, Xia Shuyun didn't worry too much and made the call, saying in a cold tone, Mr. Xiao, because of the previous misunderstanding, I have been troubled. Please come to the Yalog restaurant, room 201 on the second floor, to help me clarify the relationship between my ex-boyfriend and me. Because her anger had not yet subsided, Xia Shuyun's acting skills had improved a lot, giving people the feeling that she was angry with Xiao Zimo. After hanging up the phone, Xia Shuyun asked Ji Qian, Xiao Zimo agreed. He will be here in about 20 minutes. Okay, let's order the dishes first. Ji Tianwen raised his hand to signal. Xia Shuyun didn't hesitate to pick up the tablet on the table and ordered more than 20 dishes in one go, specifically choosing the most expensive ones. Chapter 26 One more. While waiting for Xiao Zimo to arrive, Xia Shuyun mentioned a lot of things that happened when they were dating. Ji Tianwen felt like he was being tortured. Every time Xia Shuyun said something, he wanted to curse himself. But for Xia Shuyun, it was a different feeling. It was Xiao Zimo who suggested to her to bring up the old matter, with the purpose of playing the emotional card with Ji Tianwen. But when she talked about the past events one by one, Xia Shuyun felt that Ji Tianwen was really good to her. Birthdays, Valentine's Day, and anniversaries together, there is never a shortage of gifts and surprises. Although she didn't feel any surprise at that time, she had to admit that Ji Tianwen was indeed attentive enough. There was one more thing that Xia Shuyun deliberately did not say. That is, she was kidnapped, and Ji Tianwen risked his life to save her from the kidnappers. If he wasn't deeply in love, how could he risk his life? No, I can't think like that. Xia Shuyun immediately interrupted the thought in her mind. She didn't like Ji Tianwen in the first place, and the only reason they were together was for the Xia Group. However, no matter how hard she tried to control her thoughts, the image of Ji Tianwen suffering from severe injuries could not be shaken off her mind. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. Xia Shuyun came back to her senses, calmed down a little, and said, please come in. The door opened and Xiao Zimo, wearing makeup, walked in. His kidneys were severely overdrawn in the capital, and if he didn't wear makeup, even his lips would be white, which showed that he had indulged in excessive sexual activities. If Ji Tianwen misunderstood again, it would be a big trouble. Mr. Ji, Miss Xia. Xiao Zimo smiled flatteringly and bowed 90 degrees when they met. Xia Shuyun couldn't bear to see her brother Zimo in such a posture, but when she thought of what her brother Zimo said on the phone last night, she quickly calmed herself down and turned her gaze to Ji Tianwen. Who do you want to hear first? It's all the same. If you collude with each other in advance, it doesn't matter who you listen to first. Then I'll go ahead and talk. Xia Shuyun said, Mr. Xiao is my high school classmate. We haven't been in touch since we graduated from high school. It was only a month ago when Mr. Xiao returned to China that we met again at a class reunion. Xiao Zimo nodded and continued, Ji Xiao, after I graduated from high school, I went abroad to be a trainee. Now that the 4 returning students have done well after returning to China, I also want to return to China to develop. I don't have much fame, let alone a fan base. If I hold a concert, the tickets will definitely not be sold out. So, I asked Miss Xia for help and asked her to solve the ticketing problem. Miss Xia was very kind and agreed to help me because of our friendship as old classmates. Xia Shuyun continued, Tianwen, on the stage that day, I was really acting in a drama, and the words I said were all lines. Yes, yes, yes. Xiao Zimo quickly agreed, I have brought the script here, please take a look, Master Ji. As he said this, he put the canvas bag in his hand on the table and took out a stack of A4 paper from it. I circled Miss Xia's lines with a pen. They are on the second page. Xiao Zimo said respectfully. Ji Qianwen didn't go to get the script, and chuckled and said, performing a play, and dancing. Xia Shuyun explained, I was playing a dare with Sun Jujio at the time. She randomly picked a segment and asked me to perform it on stage. I lost the game and had no choice but to admit defeat. Oh. Ji Qian nodded and then asked, does the script require that we wear a wedding dress during rehearsal? Xia Shuyun was naturally prepared for this question and replied seriously, I want to see in advance what it will look like when I put on the wedding dress. There is only one wedding, and I want to show my best side and amaze everyone. Ji Qianwen smiled without saying anything, as if he believed it, but also as if he didn't. Seeing this, Xiao Zimo bowed 90 degrees again, and said with a guilty look on his face, Mr. Ji, I'm really sorry. Because of me, I have brought so much unnecessary trouble to you and Miss Xia. I formally apologize to you here. Ji Qianwen hesitated for a moment and said, swear an oath for me to hear. No problem. Xiao Zimo agreed readily, raised 3 fingers, and said seriously, I, Xiao Zimo, swear to heaven, if there is any improper relationship between Miss Xia and I, let me be struck by lightning and die a miserable death. Xia Shuyun frowned slightly, feeling that Brother Zimo agreed too readily, as if he was particularly eager to cut off ties with her. Although this was discussed in advance, I still felt a little uncomfortable. Tianwen, do you believe it now? Xia Shuyun asked. Ji Tianwen ignored her and said to Xiao Zimo, add one more. Mr. Ji, you can add anything you want. Xiao Zimo said without any hesitation, giving people a feeling of being very honest and having a clear conscience. Ji Tianwen said calmly, you can add one more sentence. From the moment you enter this room, if you tell a lie, you will be toyed with by this old and ugly woman for the rest of your life. Xiao Zimo was shocked. He was very suspicious whether the prince of the Ji group had found out about his tricks in the imperial capital. However, he quickly calmed down. If Ji Tianwen had solid evidence in his hand, he should have shown it to Xia Shuyun, who was in love. And now Xia Shuyun is still cooperating with him in acting, which means that Ji Tianwen does not have any solid evidence in his hand. After figuring this out, Xiao Zimo continued to swear, I, Xiao Zimo, swear to heaven, from the moment I enter this room, if I say even one lie, I will be toyed with by an old, ugly woman for the rest of my life. He really didn't care about swearing. If it were really effective, then those people who made vows of eternal love when they were young would have been struck to death by lightning long ago. The reason why Ji Tianwen asked Xiao Zimo to add this one was because Xiao Zimo became famous in his previous life. He has received blackmail photos and videos from wealthy old ladies in foreign countries. In the picture, Xiao Zimo was posing in various coquettish ways. Some were tied up, some were hung up, and some were whipped. The scale of the scenes was even more shocking and eye-catching than the films shot in daily life. Now it seems that the experience abroad did not leave too much psychological trauma on Xiao Zimo. However, Ji Tianwen did not feel discouraged. Anyway, the initiative is in his hands now, and he has plenty of time to play with the 2 people in front of him. Boom, boom, boom. At this time, there was another knock on the door. Xia Shuyun seemed to think of something, her expression changed, and then she said, please come in. The door was pushed open, and waiters with excellent figures and looks came in a line, pushing food carts. Xiao Zimo was stunned on the spot, his eyes were wide open. Chapter 27. Which foot was first in the door? The reason why Xiao Zimo lost his composure was not because the waitress was so beautiful that she was infatuated. But there were simply too many things on the dining car. There were 5 Australian lobsters in total. There were more than a dozen plates of abalone and sea cucumber. In addition, there are more than a dozen dishes that are not cheap just by looking at the presentation. Can you finish ordering so much at one time? Or is it that the rich second generation just want this kind of appearance? After the waiter left, Xie Shuyun looked at the table full of dishes and smiled embarrassedly. Tianwen, when I placed the order just now, I didn't pay attention. It seems that I ordered too much. Do you mind? Of course I don't mind. If you feel it's not enough, you can order 2 more tables. Ji Tianwen said without hesitation. He wasn't planning on spending any money anyway, so why should he mind? Hearing this, Xie Shuyun and Xiao Zimo were both cheered up. Ji Tianwen seemed to have believed what they said, which was a great thing. Tianwen, Xie Group can't pay next month's salary. Xie Shuyun said in a pitiful tone, when Xie Group survives, I will definitely repay you well. Oh. Ji Tianwen responded. Then, there was no further question. Xie Shuyun couldn't help but ask, Tianwen, don't you still believe that there is nothing wrong between me and Mr. Xiao? Yes. Since you believe it, then invest in Xie Group as soon as possible. We really can't delay any longer. Ji Tianwen didn't respond. He turned his head to look at Xiao Zimo, who was standing not far away, and asked, Did you enter the door with your left foot first, or with your right foot first? Xiao Zimo? Mr. Ji, let me ask you a question. Is there any rule about which foot enters the door first? Xiao Zimo asked tentatively. Ji Tianwen frowned and said unhappily, Since you know you're talking too much, why do you still want to ask? Are you provoking me? No, no, no. Xiao Zimo quickly shook his head like a rattle and denied, Mr. Ji, compared to you, I am nothing. Even if you give me 10 guts, I would not dare to provoke you. Then answer my questions honestly. Ji Tianwen's tone returned to calm. Xiao Zimo's mind raced, and he deliberately didn't say anything definite. I forgot a little. I think I should have gone in with my left foot first. Ji Tianwen said dissatisfiedly, Don't be so ambiguous, which foot entered the door first? Seeing that he couldn't fool her, Xiao Zimo had to reply, It's the left foot. Ji Tianwen turned his head to look at Xie Shuyun and sighed, Unfortunately, I can't invest in Xie Group in the near future. What do you mean? Xie Shuyun said angrily, Our misunderstanding has been resolved, are you still angry? It has nothing to do with me. Ji Tianwen said seriously, Before I left today, I asked a master to tell my fortune. The master told me that if Mr. Xiao walks in with his left foot first, I can't invest recklessly in the near future, otherwise I will be in big trouble. Hearing this, Xiao Zimo slapped his forehead and said hurriedly, Ji Xiao, I was wrong about the fastest one just now. I entered the door with my right foot first, it was my right foot. Ji Tianwen's eyes became stern. Xiao Zimo shuddered with fear and quickly lowered his head, not daring to speak any more nonsense. Although the rich second generation in China, unlike the sons of foreign chaebols, dare not be so blatant and let people disappear from this world so easily. However, it would not be difficult for Ji Tianwen to deal with him, make him run into obstacles everywhere and hinder his career. Xie Shuyun couldn't stand it anymore, she slammed the table, stood up and said, Ji Tianwen, if you don't want to invest, you can just say so. Teasing others like this will only make you look like a piece of shit. So, you don't care at all about the disaster that is about to happen to me, and you only want me to invest, right? Ji Tian asked word by word. Xie Shuyun said angrily, What disaster is coming? That's just an excuse you make for not wanting to invest. You say it's an excuse, so it is an excuse. Ji Tianwen did not argue, he stood up and left. Master Ji, Master Ji. Xiao Zimo tried to dissuade him, No matter how wrong you are, it's all my fault. I apologize to you. Don't stop him. Let him go. Xie Shuyun said angrily. It's obvious that Ji Tianwen is trying to trick people, can't Brother Zimo see that? Xiao Zimo hesitated for a moment and opened the door. He didn't want to anger Ji Tianwen, because if he did, he would be the one in big trouble. After Ji Tianwen left, Xiao Zimo waited for a few more minutes before closing the door. He then sighed and said, Shuyun, you still can't calm down. Xie Shuyun was still angry and said, Ji Tianwen never planned to invest. Brother Zimo, can't you see it? I don't think it's necessarily that they don't plan to invest, but that Ji Tianwen doesn't really believe that we are innocent. You've sworn, but he still doesn't believe you. What else can you do? As long as your mind doesn't slip, there are always more solutions than problems. Xiao Zimo comforted her, and then said in an embarrassment, Shu Yun, I do have a way to make Ji Qianwen believe that we are innocent, but... Oh! Xia Shuyun said impatiently, Brother Zimo, don't be so hesitant. There is nothing we can't talk about. This was exactly what Xiao Zimo was waiting for. He gritted his teeth, leaned close to Xia Shuyun's ear, and told her his plan. After listening to this, Xia Shuyun couldn't help but look embarrassed. Seeing this, Xiao Zimo returned to his sighing state and said helplessly, Shu Yun, I know my method will make you lose face. Forget it, I'll think of another way. Xia Shuyun suddenly felt bad and frowned, saying, Brother Zimo, don't say that. It's not that I think your method is bad, nor am I unwilling to lose face. After a pause, she explained in detail, your method is based on the basic condition that Ji Qianwen still likes me, but I always feel that Ji Qianwen seems to no longer like me. Shu Yun, you worry too much. Xiao Zimo said patiently, if Ji Qianwen really didn't like you, he probably wouldn't have come. Since he came, it means he still has you in his heart. You compromised and let him waste 5 years of your youth. You let him go so easily. It's too easy for him. Xia Shuyun thought for a long time, nodded and said, then I'll try it as you said. Xiao Zimo breathed a sigh of relief, looking at the table full of delicious food, his appetite whetted as he said, Shu Yun, let's eat. I need to replenish my energy. Oh no, I'm just hungry. After saying that, he sat down and started eating from the table full of dishes without any manners.